Not that that's a oh, wait. Hey. On. Drop. Don't worry, we're recovering. We're recovering quickly. We are recovering quickly. Oh God. I love the thing. That thing. I think it's also competing a little bit with the new iOS, which I don't know that those two things play nice together. Or the really, really old iOS I have on this computer. And I will even remember to drag the microphone in front of my face at some point.
It does say we are live streaming.
Like a radio guy should. I will drag the. Sorry?
It does say we are live streaming. I got the.
We're a little late, folks. The pre-show is this fun bit here. We're doing our sharing because Facebook decided they didn't want me to use them today. Now our sharing seems to be quite slow. I don't know if we're having internet issues or not. Always good when there's internet issues when you're supposed to be doing a live program. Nothing like it. This fancy technological world that we're in. Don't worry, we're coming to you, kids. You just do all this first. You know how it goes.
Technology never works when you need it to. Come on. Isn't that what a Murphy's law?
To an extent, it is very much like your heat and air conditioning. Your heat never blows in the summer.
I just lost half of what you said.
So it's very much like your heat and air conditioning in your home. The heat never breaks in the summer.
Oh, right. Absolutely.
On. Of course, the screen being touchy isn't helping me right now either. Couple more. We're almost there. Be right there, kids. We'll be right there. There's all of our nationals. Hopefully. There we go. Group. Share to a page. Post. Oh, big fun. Oh, God. It doesn't help when I tap the wrong stuff either. Feeling the pressure. I'm feeling the pressure. Trying to rush. Getting silly here. All right. Share to a group. Here we go. There. I do apologize, Ty.
No worries.
Okay. There's that bit. All right, here we go. In. Here we go. Oh, I guess I should turn the volume down. Not okay. Oh, what a day. 3, 2, 1.
Kennedy, 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 Kennedy.
Do you want a man for president who's seasoned through and through, but not so doggone seasoned that he won't try something new? A man who's old enough to know
And young enough to do
well, it's up to you, it's up to you, it's strictly up to you.
what is Kennedy, 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 Kennedy.
Do you want a man with spirit who is not afraid to fight?
A man whose record shows that he will fight for what is right.
A loyal man who'll bring the job a fresh new point of view. Well, it's up to you, it's up to you, it's strictly up to you.
Cause it's Kennedy, 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 Kennedy.
And do you deny to any man the right he's guaranteed to be elected president, no matter what his creed?
It's promised in the Bill of Rights to which we must be true.
So it's up to you, it's up to you, it's strictly up to you.
And it's Kennedy, 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 for me. Kennedy, 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 Kennedy.
Do you like a man who answers straight, a man who's always fair?
We'll measure him against the others, and when you compare, you cast your vote for Kennedy and a change that's overdue. So it's up to you, it's up to you, it's strictly up to you.
Yes, it's Kennedy, 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 for me.
Kennedy, 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 Kennedy,
Welcome from my humble second bedroom here in the Saucon Valley, part of the Lehigh Valley, from the brand new wholly owned subsidiary of Waste Connections from Texas, the Bethlehem Landfill Township. This is, where are we? Saucon Valley again? Let me try that again. Part of the Lehigh Valley in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania in these United States, part of this planet Earth, the only one we have. Third off from the sun in the Terran solar system, part of the Milky Way galaxy. This is the Kennedy Effect live for the 14th of November, 2021. We were a little late because if you heard any of the pre-show, one of the really interesting things about these social media platforms is, even though they are obviously and clearly owned by someone else, it's kind of also yours, right? I mean, you put your stuff up there, you kind of put your life out there, some people more than others. You build these platforms, you build these pages, you build these sites, and then when you try to sign into them, the corporation decides, we don't think we want you here today. And that's kind of what just happened. I had to reset passwords, I had to reboot things, just because Facebook decided we don't think we know who you are today, and we don't think we want you on our airs today. So here we are. It took a few extra minutes. We're just a tad bit running late. You know, it's human. It's a thing. It's a technology thing. It just is what it is. But here we are. Anyway, at 5:11 Eastern Standard Time here in the Saucon Valley. Wherever you might be watching on Facebook, 90 plus places that the show has gone out to today, if I kept track correctly. 90 groups all across the country, all across the Facebook universe, and our national pages, our local, all the way out to global pages. Wherever you might be watching or listening across the Facebook universe, thank you. Thank you very, very much. We could not do what we do here. This show would not exist if it were not for each and every one of you. We tend to talk about these things in big numbers of, I have X thousands of viewers and listeners, or X hundreds of thousands if we're comes down to individuals. We need you. We need every single one of you. We could not be here if you are not there. You can stay exactly where you are, continue to watch, listen, have dinner, get the kids ready for school, whatever it might be. Enjoy. We're simply glad that you are here. If you choose to, if you wish, if you would like to, you can come to our home group Facebook page called That Other Side of Information. You should know it all by now. And that's where you can interact with me, with our guest, with our upcoming guest next hour. You can talk to us, questions, comments, agree, disagree, stamp your feet, yell, scream, give us a virtual hug, whatever it might be. You can do it at our home group Facebook page, That Other Side of Information. To our sisters and brothers and friends and family at hot101.net, thank you for allowing us onto your desktops, laptops, tablets, phones, Bluetooth speakers, Bluetoothing in the car, wherever it might be that you take in hot101.net. Thank you for allowing us to be part of your Sunday on this 14th of November. If you do not know how to listen to hot101.net, it is extremely simple. The web address is our name. It's hot101.net. If you have an Apple device, go to the Apple App Store. You can find the hot101.net app there. If you have an Android device, you can go to Google Play. And regardless of what other devices you might have that you might use for phones or tablets, you can go to the TuneIn radio app. Go to the search bar and search hot101.net and you will find us there. And of course, my new favorite game is to get deep into the microphone and tell Alexa, play hot101.net. Somewhere, one of these weeks, someone is going to email me or tweet at me or call or something and say, you triggered my Alexa. It's my new favorite game. Somewhere along the way, I'm going to trigger Alexa to start playing hot101.net. So thank you, hot101.net. And of course, TCP, the culture professional from Lancaster. We are proud to be part of that family as well. It's a great thing to be part of so many wonderful groups of folks. So let me, even though we are late, let me get straight to our guest. This past week, the 11th of November, was what we call in the U.S. Veterans Day. They call across Europe either Remembrance Day or Armistice Day, but it was a time over a great deal of our small little blue world to remember the veterans among us, to remember the veterans who have passed, and to recall and remember everything that they have done for us as a broader society. I did not serve. I have not served. It just wasn't my cup of tea. My brother did for 25 years. My father did for 37 years. And so I have an appreciation for it. I have a familiarity with it. They did not see combat, which I believe my guests will understand when I say I'm grateful for, but they did not. But they were there for an awful long time, and they were very, very well, my brother is still with us. My dad is not, but very, extremely humbled and proud by their service to the state of New Jersey, through the National Guard, and through the country as a whole. And so we thought that this Sunday would be a very, very good day to revisit, because we have done some programs about this before, but to revisit all things surrounding veterans and veterans issues, healthcare, mental health care, defense budget, job opportunities, the construction, the inclusivity or lack thereof at times of the modern military, where the U.S. uses its military, when, how, and why, and right on down the line. You know how our conversations tend to work here. We start with a question and then we go where the conversation leads us, and that's exactly what we're planning to do with a first-time guest and new friend to the program and new member of the Kennedy Effect family, and that is Ty Holmes. Mr. Holmes, welcome to the program.
Hi, thank you very much for having me. I greatly appreciate the opportunity to be here. I love your introductions. I don't know, after what you said, I don't know if I could say anymore. I'm good.
Let me just start the way that we typically start the program, and that is with a intentionally vague and general question, because we like the guests to answer it however it might strike them and come to their brains. And that is, who is Ty Holmes and how did you get here?
Good question. Ty Holmes is just a man that's just trying to make an impact on his community currently. Um, just like a lot of people, we all go about it differently, but we all try to positively affect our community. That's what I've spent a great deal of my life trying to do. And before it was on a larger global scale, being in the United States military for so many years. Now it's centralized to Lackawanna County, where I live, Pennsylvania. How I got here is I followed my example. I was fortunate enough to grow up with phenomenal male influences in my life. My father was the kind of guy that lived by the motto, do as I do, not as I say. He led the way by his actions. Also, there was a gentleman from my town who was pretty much a legend in academic and sports and just a cool guy that we all looked up to. A few years older than me, named Chris Miles, who also served and kind of someone I wanted to kind of emulate, mimic my life after. So I've been blessed, fortunately, with phenomenal male role models who have laid the foundation for who I am today by the way that they lived their lives.
You are a veteran yourself.
Yes, sir.
You're also a veteran of the police force, which I think we can get into at some point as well, because we have discussed on the program quite a few times what seems to me, and I'm happy to be corrected if I'm wrong, this military to policing pipeline that seems to have been created. But before we get to that, I guess as a bit of a background, what took you, well, give us a bit of your service. What took you to the military? Where did you serve? How long were you there? What did you see? I see what looks like almost like a modeling picture there, sir, on your on your left shoulder. The picture behind you.
That's actually my wedding photo.
Is it?
Right there. That was the day I married my wife.
Well,
Yes.
you haven't aged. Unlike the rest of us, you haven't aged. I can tell you that.
That's the filters on this right here that I'm working.
I don't have enough filters, as you can tell.
After I
I'm
left
reflecting
college,
the light around me. That's as best as I can do. Well, tell us, what took you to the military? Why did you decide, just tell us about your military service.
I think what piqued my interest to serve in the military started when I was in college. I had a roommate. He was actually a National Guardsman for Pennsylvania. I went to Keystone, which is right down the street from where we live. It's funny. I just never thought about serving in the military until I had this man as a roommate. I saw the way that he lived his life, his organizational skills, how he prioritized things. I loved everything about how he went about just doing his daily task. And it kind of piqued my interest. And then, as I've said to you before, my father served, and this gentleman that I revere, named Chris Miles, revere a great deal, he was serving. When I was done with school and I was home, I just couldn't fathom being home in Summit, New Jersey anymore. It's not where I wanted to be. I said, I don't know what I want to do, but I've outgrown this beautiful city. It's a beautiful place to be, but I've outgrown it. So Chris happened to be home on leave from the military, and he said, hey, what about joining the military? So I ended up going to talk to a recruiter, and I drank the Kool-Aid and said, okay, great. I'll sign up for 2 years. I'll find myself, see what it is I want to do in those 2 years. But in the meantime, I'll get to travel. So I joined the Navy. I actually was going to join the Army. The Army initially rejected me because I had broken a bone in my foot in high school. It didn't heal correctly, and they wanted to re-break my foot, put a pin in it, and I just was not okay with that at all. So I joined the Navy.
Even the thought of that hurts.
Thank you. I didn't understand how they thought I was going to be okay with that.
Yeah,
As they
yeah.
said, very cavalier. Oh, we're just going to break your foot and put a pin in it. I'm like, that just doesn't work for me, but okay. Joined the Navy, and I tell people, was able to serve in a great deal of places overseas, Japan, the Middle East, having the opportunity to travel to places like Singapore, Hong Kong, Australia, Guam, Hawaii, Dubai, Abu Dhabi, Kuwait, Sri Lanka. I literally got out to see the world, was able to literally live out any dream or fantasy that I had as far as seeing exotic places. And not only that, getting the opportunity to learn a lot about myself. Because when you join the military, I mean, you really have to grow up quickly or you will get eaten up. It's real simple. Grow up quickly or we will chew you up, spit you out, and end your career and send you home. Um, I was again blessed with, in my first couple of years, some really strong leadership that kind of said, look, you have a future in this if you want it, so long as you do these things. Where I had thought that I had matured and I was this, polished kid, I'm strong and I'm tough. And they really kind of gave me the no, you need a lot of work, but you can get there if you follow us. So
What years are we talking about, Ty?
91, I'm going to date myself.
So this would have been, you're not dating yourself, trust me. There's no one in the world that's older than me. So we're talking George H.W. Bush administration right after the Reagan administration, and we're talking first Gulf War
Correct.
era.
Absolutely.
Just to put everything in perspective for our audience, we're talking first Gulf War area, 1991.
Yes. So it just being able to serve on ships, like for instance, one of the ships that I was stationed on is called Stinger Debts. And what your Stinger Debts is you are temporarily assigned to certain ships to fire handheld rocket-held launchers at incoming aircraft. And they call you Stinger Debt. You actually go through a training in the Middle East, and then they basically rent you out to ships that are currently serving in the theater of operation. One of the ships, the USS Hewitt out of Yokosuka, Japan. Another ship was the USS Independence out of Yokosuka, Japan. Being able to be on those ships and work in so many different areas and an opportunity to learn so many different jobs while, again, exploring and getting to meet different cultures really helped shape the very young person that I became that later laid the foundation for who I am today. I mean, I've really had to refocus and reboot my brain and how I thought from more of a selfish mentality to a team mentality, where I thought I was this team guy. I wasn't to the depth that I could have been, or I was after I left the Navy. I spent 10 years in the Navy. The only reason why I decided to leave the Navy is because I had a son that I was sitting at his birthday party one time and doing a self-reflection and looking back and just realizing how much of his life I had been deployed at the time due to my job. And while I loved what I did, you just have to make this decision. What's more important? Is traveling the world doing this, or is being there better? At the same time, LAPD, which does recruit military heavily, came knocking and said, hey, we will offer you a job. Why would I say no? I had also served as a military police officer. The transition was going to be pretty seamless and smooth. And I took the opportunity. I felt that was the next stage of my life. That was going to be, the rest of my career. My father had spent over 30 years in law enforcement. All of my uncles were in law enforcement. So I felt like it was just, the next chapter of my life, following the path or tradition of homesmen. And as far as I say homesmen, men on my dad's side of the family, that's what they do, serve in the military, and then they do law enforcement. So I just figured this is what we do. Unfortunately, 9/11 happened, and I got a history lesson quickly from, to this day, I wish I could remember the officer's name. Several days after 9/11, my phone rang and he said, hey, this is, Captain so-and-so, you need to report to the nearest naval facility in the next 72 hours. And my response to him was, I have fulfilled my military obligation of 10 years. I'm done, because it is 10 years, whether you do 6 active, 4 active, it's 10 years when you sign up. A lot of people don't know that. So I said, I completed my 10 years. I did it all active, so I'm good. But I'm also focusing on my current job, which is law enforcement. Because as everybody knows, right after 9/11, there was the rumor that Chicago and LA, Texas were next. We didn't know if it was over. So we were still working pretty hard. And he said, basically, I'm going to give you a quick history lesson. I said, okay. He said, who do you work for? I said, the city of Los Angeles. He says, who do I work for? I said, the United States government. He said, exactly. Do you really want me to send U.S. Marshals to come lock you up for failure to report? No. So I reported to the nearest naval base. I spent the next 2 years of going mobilization, which is activating me. They put me in a reserve status, and they would take me for 6 months and send me where they needed to send me. then released me for 6 months, and then 6 months, 6 months, trying to manage that life between going 6 months in the military and then 6 months in the civilian world where everyone thinks that's the same job. It's two opposite ends of the spectrum. You don't even think alike. You don't even approach your job the same way. It became a little taxing. So I served for an Army guy when I was over in the Middle East the second time. And I said, hey, can I cross over to the Army? Because I really, truly liked working for him. I saw his leadership, his mission, the way he presented himself, and the way things were being done from an Army perspective. And I said, wow, this is very different than the Navy perspective. Also, I knew that, and some people may say this is negative, 2,997 people died for no reason. I was pissed off. And I knew we were going to have ground forces somewhere. And I'm not going to lie, not trying to be a hero, but I wanted to be there because somebody needed to be held accountable for those people dying. Honestly, truly is number one motivating fact. Someone did that. Someone needed to pay. We were going, and I wanted to make sure someone was held accountable. So the military allowed me to cross over. I spent an additional 15 years in the Army. My very first tour was at 4th Cavalry Brigade in Fort Knox. And let me just say it was an eye-opening experience going from the Navy to an Army chart, just a unit that was so, 4th Cavalry Brigade is a very high-tempo unit, very put together, squared away. Like when I walked in the door, I had to learn an entirely new language from Navy to Army. We don't even speak the same language. So I went in and I didn't have a sign that said, hey, I used to be Navy, so, well, take your time with me. I walked in the door, uniform, they just expected I knew, and they would say things, and I'm trying to remember, like, wait. So it took me, it was a learning curve. And you're learning,
Do the interpretation in your own head, kind of.
exactly. And when you're doing that in a unit that is so high tempo and just known for its excellence, it becomes even more of an issue for you to push yourself because you don't want to be the one that holds them down. That was the last thing you wanted to be, that person dragging the unit along because you couldn't keep up. I think that was probably the best thing for me though, because it was trial by fire. I literally was put on the spot, learn it now, absorb it, get it, first time around, study on your off time. I mean, I was hitting the book so that I could, retain information so that when I walked into meetings and someone started speaking, I'm like, what the hell acronym was that? I mean, that literally was what it was. What acronym did he just use? I'd be tapping the guy next to me and he's like, no, leave me alone. Pay attention. So it was a heck of a learning curve. It was very quick. But it was something I embraced. And I'm actually grateful that it happened that way because it made me grow up even quicker, even more. I mean, it really made me take the profession serious. I had to really focus, not just at work, but even in my off-duty hours to try to play catch up to where my peers all were, because I was not even close. I ended up spending, I tell people, 15 years, and everyone always says, well, which unit do you find to be better? Which job do you feel that you made the biggest impact? And I say yes to both because the Navy made me who I am. The Navy laid the foundation. The Army kind of polished it. It really honed my leadership skills because that's what the Army is. The Army is really leadership. I mean, they, like the Marines, are the pinnacle of leadership. Our entire structure is based off of chain of command and knowing how to follow it, and just leadership and owning responsibility. And I tell people, like, it just really, truly made me just a better father, husband, friend to people. So I always say, when people say, which is better? I say, yes, I like them both. I always say maybe the Army might be the most beneficial just because I married a teacher. And towards the end of my career, I was kind of getting stagnant. But as she's a teacher, so I watched how she was going about her profession, her craft, and it really made me refocus how I was going to spend the latter part of my career, meaning I was going to become a better teacher. And I was going to download the 20 plus years of knowledge that I had obtained from so many phenomenal leaders that I really, truly, I owed it to them and to the soldiers to really download it. Because if I just retired with it all stuck in my head, it was absolutely pointless. So it really made me focus on downloading that information and becoming more of a leader, more of a teacher. I don't say leader, more of a teacher, been sharing information, just constantly going over it, creating legacy binders. And that was a big thing in my last 4 years. I started creating what's called legacy binders for units so that I could just say, let me type up what I do day to day, what I've learned, what I've done in leadership schools, so that the next person that comes behind me has this binder. And my request in the last page of that binder, if they ever got to it, was make sure you add to this so that the next person that comes behind you can, learn from us, learn from our mistakes, our achievements, hiccups, questions. And that's, I always tell people, so maybe I say the latter part of my Army career was the most rewarding because I got the opportunity to really share all the accumulative knowledge over 20 plus years.
How torn are you going to be in a couple of weeks for the Army Navy game?
I get a lot of crap from that from my friends. A buddy of mine who used to be Navy, who I grew up with, his name is Craig Pollock. We've known each other probably since we were like second, third grade, and he's Navy, and he's always busting my chops because I wear an Army jersey. He says, "How do you wear an Army jersey?" I said, "It's the last unit I was in. I served in the Army last." But I always tell people, I wish for a tie. I know it's never going to happen. I wish for a great game, like a 60-60 tie. But you know what? I'm just proud and honored. My buddy is actually trying to get tickets. And he said if he gets tickets, he's taking me to the game just because he wants to, we're, again, both kids, friends since we were kids. And he always says there's no one I want to sit next to at a Army Navy game more than a guy that spent a decade or more in both. So I actually love that game, and again, wish for a tie, but someone's got to lose.
Is there a way to, I guess one of my weaknesses doing this show is that I do tend to ask very large questions that have very large answers. And maybe I should do a better job of narrowing that down and being a little more tight in my questioning. But I always like to hear the answers of the guests. I want to know what they think of first.
Okay.
And is there a way for you to explain maybe the amount of pressure, or perhaps the conundrum of the irony of that we ask so much of young people in the military, some 18, 19, 20, they can't drink yet.
Yes.
They can vote, but maybe never have. They may very well have never had a full-time job before in their lives, never lived away from home. Is there a way to explain, but yet we train you? I shouldn't say we. I guess we as a country, I certainly had nothing to do with it. So maybe we is a bad word to use, but that you are trained quite literally to kill and entrusted with hundreds of millions of dollars, if not billions of dollars worth of equipment, traveling to places around the globe that probably some you hadn't even seen in books before, let alone ever thought you were going to visit. Is there a way to describe the pressure, the sense of responsibility that we place on an exceptionally small percentage of our population?
Honestly, I sitting here thinking, how could I articulate that? It's virtually impossible. The amount of pressure that is placed on the young men and women that elect to serve is tremendous. But what we have done in the military over the course of years is we have ourselves have pulled some of that weight off them. When you come in, we don't immediately expect you to make a significant debt. In other words, that's why there's the rank structure. You will get more responsibility as you progress in rank, which comes along with time, knowledge, and your ability to show that you can handle that. But it's still a great deal of responsibility. And there are no words that I could ever use to articulate the amount of pressure going into the military in your first 18 months, what you will feel. That's why it has such a high attrition rate. We have so many kids that don't even graduate basic training, because when they realize the amount of pressure that they're going to absorb mentally, physically, emotionally, some of the decisions they're going to have to make, which are life and death, there are some people that can't handle it. What we try to do, and what we try to do as far as any unit that I was ever a part of, was we would always take that person, a brand new young soldier, male, female, didn't matter. We would pair them with a seasoned soldier, and we would say, it is your responsibility to walk this person through this journey. You've been there, you've done it, you know the hiccups, and you know what's coming. Now, does that make it any easier? We always hope. I mean, you'll never know until the end. Looking back, from the time that I joined till the time that I was in a combat zone and firing a gun was 18 months. So to take me from a college kid to a kid within 18 months was firing a weapon, there's nothing in the world that can prepare you for that. It's just a great deal of pressure. What you can only hope is that you surround that person with strong leadership. And the fact is, if a person can die for their country, they should be able to drink. I've long said that is the most asinine law I've ever heard. You can go die for your country, but you can't have a drink. I can tell you overseas, that is not, that the military does not enforce that. Okay. In Japan, guarantee you, we had plenty of kids because you can be served in Japan. So you can walk into any bar at 18 and here. But more so, they didn't even ask you for ID. If you're an American service member, they were like, you can have whatever you want. They didn't care. But I've always said that, and I think we put too much emphasis on that. But again, if you want this person to be in a position where they have to decide to take someone's life, possibly, be responsible for millions of dollars worth of equipment, and you're going to spend X, Y, Z amount of money to train, you have to understand the mental health aspect of that. I don't think we do a good enough job with the mental health. I've long said that we could do so much better, because that is why we have so many problems with so many veterans now. We wait until it's too late to start doing mental health. We need to start that earlier with soldiers and sailors, military personnel. It needs to be done sooner. There needs to be wellness checks. There needs to be a better checks and balances. I came back from a deployment and all I wanted to do was go home. So I lied my ass off when they said, "Are you okay?" I was not okay, but I didn't feel like sitting in a hospital, eating pudding, listening to some shrink, put me in a circle with a bunch of other people who also have trauma and want to talk about it. And then I have to live their trauma on top of mine. And that's another thing about group therapy the military does, where, hey, let's put you all in a circle. Wait, you want us all to relive one another's trauma? How smart is that? So I lied my ass off and said, no, I'm fine, when knowing that I was not ready to go home, knowing that I was not capable of functioning because of what I just endured. So to put it easily, and I tell people, the best way that I can possibly imagine is imagine the most stressful day of your life and then envision doing that for a 6 to a year deployment. Whatever the most stressful day of your life, period, whatever you can come up with, the worst day of your life, imagine for 6 months to a year, that's your life every day. That's what it's like to be a young man or woman that we are throwing into these positions. Even with all the training that we have, even with the mentorship, it's still a great task and deal to ask of them.
So without trying to put words into your mouth, if I'm distilling this properly, is it your belief, and God knows you've got the experience to put behind it, but is it your belief that for all of the attention, albeit too late and too new attention to the mental health of our vets, that process should be being paid attention to while you're serving, not just when you're ready to come home and you've already seen whatever it is that you've seen and you've already failed to process it, but that interdiction needs to be happening, if that's the right word, but that communication, that interdiction needs to be happening while you're still serving, while you're still in uniform.
I absolutely
an active and ongoing process.
Absolutely agree. And here's another thing. There are some places where if a soldier comes forward and says, I'm having a hard time, they immediately strip that person of their gun. You know, what will you become to when someone is served and done something and deployed and kind of, I don't want to say earn their stripes, because I don't, if you, just because you didn't, go to a combat zone, you still earn your stripes. But to tell a soldier when they come to you voluntarily and say, I'm having a hard time, to immediately put them in, let's pull their gun, let's give them a popsicle stick and a desk. That's what we did. I don't know if that's still done because I've been retired for a few years, but I didn't like that process because you're putting a negative stigma saying when you come to us and say, I'm having a hard time, let's penalize you, let's do this. Yes, I think the mental health aspect of it should become part of the normal training. I think more needs to be done consistently. I don't think it should just be a check the block. It should be done consistently, even to the fact that what about making soldiers part of their job go to therapy once a month? That cannot hurt. And you can absolutely afford to cut out once a month for each soldier. For anyone to say no, I don't know what kind of unit they served in, but it was unorganized. But we need to do that, force it. And I don't care if the soldier goes and sits down and he or she talks about, I love pretty yellow unicorns. I don't care. So long as they are having that safe place where they can go and vent, they can go and talk and not be crucified and not be put into the rubber room because they are saying my thoughts. This person a year ago was in a combat zone. You don't think they're going to come back and just dream of, let's talk about, just football and that. No, they're going to probably talk to you about some of the things they endured, saw, and had to do. That sticks with them forever.
So it's a if you're in that position, then it's a bit of a double-edged sword because this is ruminating in here and it's brewing. And you sum up for all the courage that our men and women in uniform display on a daily basis, you summon up even more courage to say, look, I'm not good.
Yeah.
Something that the structure itself is encouraging you to do, but then when you do it, you kind of get stuffed.
You do.
Into a corner. Am I characterizing that correctly?
That is what I witnessed, and that's what I saw, yes. And again, what soldier wants to do that? Because then you feel like, wait, my career's over. What I've given
It's
so
like getting
much,
punished for doing the right thing.
yes, what I've given so much of my humanity, I've given a great deal of my humanity away. And now you're taking away this. So it's a slap in the face to those men and women. And I mean, let's take it a step further. When we get out, we retire, we're supposed to receive this. Everyone thinks we have the best medical care in the world. I'm here to tell you bullshit. For anyone listening, no, it's not right. I personally went to the VA. I could get free coverage there. No, I'd rather pay a monthly premium for TRICARE thing because my experience then it was horrible. Not once, not twice, not 3 times, probably about 6 times, to the point where they had messed up medication so badly. Had I taken the medication they accidentally gave me, probably would have done damage and if not killed me because I have a heart condition. But hey, when I brought it to their attention, oh, we made a mistake. It was no sense of urgency. But when soldiers retire and they're still dealing with this, because this is something that stays with us I've heard people say, well, why don't you guys just get over it? Really? That easy. If it was that easy, do you not think I'd want to? I said, I don't like the way that I am now. You can't come up behind me and hug me because you're gonna get tossed or your neck can get snapped. My wife has to announce herself when she walks around corners because she's scared of that frazzling me when she walks into a room. So she will literally announce that, hey, I'm coming down the hall. And I feel bad for her. There's certain things when I'll sit up in the middle of the night in bed and I have to look around and bite my lip to make sure that I'm not asleep, that I'm not dreaming, I'm not somewhere that I'm not supposed to be, or I'm on watch and I just fell asleep. But when you try to receive treatment for this, the solution is let's do group therapy, or here's a drug and let's just shove you full of drug. The lack of treatment that we do when soldiers are in and when they retire is shameful. It needs to be 1,000% better. We are losing over 22 a day. I know everyone's fixated on 22. It is more than 22 now a day to suicide. I have recently lost 2 former soldiers to suicide. And I'm saying right now, we're not doing enough And I cannot wait until they retire or get out to start treating them. We have to start treating them now while they're in. And I told you, if we go to once a month and you do not hold it against them, make it a safe place for them to vent, because that's what they need to do. You know, I tell people I have so many emotions stirred up in me and ideals I don't want to share with my wife, but things that I've seen or done, but I need to get it out of me. And I told my therapist, I don't care if I freak you out and scare you to death and you walk out of here thinking, holy shit, is this guy crazy? Because that's your job. But we need that. And I think the military, the government owes us that. We have earned it. And they need to do a better job, or they're going to see this, because in about 10 years, the crop of soldiers that are currently serving that just spent all that time in Afghanistan and Iraq are going to retire. Then what are we going to do? So why should not wait until we are at a breaking point and we're 30 guys committing suicide a day? Get involved now, but stop penalizing them when they seek help.
Now, at the top of the hour and into the 6 o'clock hour, I don't have an exact time as of yet. A former guest of ours and someone who I think you are immediately going to become fast friends with, Christopher Kowardovich, is going to join us. We did a very similar program, he and I. He is a veteran himself, continues to advocate and work on behalf of veterans and so on. And I'm asking you this question a bit out of ignorance because I don't recall and we can get into this, of course, when he joins us. And I wasn't going to go down this road yet, but because you were so adamant about it, I have to ask you. The late Senator John McCain and Bernie Sanders worked on sending additional hundreds of billions of dollars into the VA system. The VA still polls at around a 75% clip in its approval rating within the military. But you're telling me you had very, very bad experiences repeatedly over, I can only assume over the course of years, with the VA. Why is the polling wrong? Do we not want to trash the VA? Is the VA lacking support and funds? Why do you think that the VA isn't operating the way it should, or that you didn't get what you thought you should have got out of it, when there appears to be 3 out of 4 that says it's a brilliant and is extremely happy with it?
Well, here's how you can gauge. Here's a more accurate number. Why don't they look at the number of veterans versus the number of veterans that are seeking treatment at VAs regularly?
And that's why I'm asking, because I don't know the answer. I will.
That's the number I'm more interested in. They're polling
Okay.
the soldiers that are going there. But where I live is, Scranton's a very big veteran-based community. Right. I know tons of soldiers that do not seek treatment there.
Okay.
Do not seek treatment there because they just feel like, I'm not going there. My interaction started when I was retiring. My retirement was being done at a West Point. So they were doing, I was forced to medically retire. Did not want to. My goal was to do 30 years. So I was not leaving. Medically, I had to retire. So my process was being handled through West Point, and some of my physical was being done through the VA in Wilkes-Barre, some through in Allentown. I walked into the Allentown VA in civilian clothes, and there was a young lady that was standing at the desk chewing bubble gum, talking on the phone. And I politely said, ma'am, I'm here to check in. And she basically ignored me. When she decided to help me, she was obnoxious and rude. When I went in to see the doctor, I let the doctor know that I didn't appreciate that treatment at all, and she should be ashamed of herself and remember where she's at. She is there serving people who have served this nation and given everything to take the job,
seriously,
like that, seriously, or
right, to take it seriously.
Like it's not just a job. You are serving, and not myself, but you are serving America's finest. I don't consider Vietnam guys, serving them. And he went out and said something to her, and she said, well, if he had been in uniform, and my response to what's the difference? We're all in uniform. We all earn the right to wear this uniform. We never take it off. You may not see it, but it's still on us. So by us walking in that door, we're wearing a uniform. But what I have seen personally is a lack of professionalism. And I say, I don't know if we need to hire more veterans. We need to set it up more like a military chain of command type thing. I don't think that would be a bad idea. Make put more active duty personnel in the VAs. You know, some of the retired medical people. We need to put more of our veterans in there because they understand when one of their brothers or sisters come limping in or getting willed in. They respect that because they walked in the same shoes. They have an understanding of what this person endured. A lot of the times, at least from my perspective, the person I was dealing with had no ideal, no concept, and didn't give a crap about what we had endured. And they were just like, you're a number. I got to deal with you. Check, get out, go sit down. And I was like, okay, to the point where I pay. I don't have to because I live 20 minutes away, but I pay monthly, so I don't have to use that. And I tell people I will never use the VA. I'd rather pay.
Do you think that is it a lack of investment in the VA? Is there a lack of, not enticement, incentive perhaps for active military medical personnel to stay in the VA? Perhaps if you're a medical doctor at Ramstein, for just to pluck a base out of my brain, or
Right.
Manila, or
That's what I'm
Okinawa,
saying,
or
yeah.
somewhere like that, and your 10 years, as you mentioned, is coming up, and you know, Dr. Sergeant, Dr. Lieutenant, Dr. Captain, we want you to stay. We want you to stay with the VA. And where do you live? Well, I live in Scranton. Great. We have a big VA hospital in Scranton. We want you to stay with us in that. So you're part of the service, but yet sort of kind of back to private citizenship, if you will. Does that need to happen? Is the VA just not a place that the professionals that you deserve, that you feel you deserve, they don't want to make it a home? They can make more money on the outside. Is it
Well,
what's
I'm
missing?
sure-
Where's the disconnect, do you think?
I don't know. That's a good question where the disconnect is. I just think that we need to find a way to try to retain. Put some type of incentive, but we need to retain people who have already served and worn this uniform. They understand. Like, there are some phenomenal people. I don't want anyone to think that I'm bashing the entire VA system. I have met some phenomenal people that work in the VA. Most of them have worn our uniform. So I can automatically tell by conversating with someone down there who has worn our uniform and who hasn't. It's almost like just by their presentation, the way they greet you. I don't know what it is, but I believe it starts at the top. But again, I also look at society right now and say, is it just indicative of our society now where customer service no longer really exists? You pull up to get a coffee at Dunkin' Donuts. What do you need? What happened to, hi, welcome to Dunkin' Donuts. How can I help you? So are we just imitating life, our civilian counterparts? Is that what we have now resorted to? We are just displaying the same patterns and attributes and behavior as our civilian counterparts, because in our civilian world, we see the lack of professionals. When you pull up somewhere, you go pay for something, it's more like, it's almost a headache, like, oh, what do you need?
Here's another one.
There's another one. So I don't know, but again, I have long said, I don't know what it's funding. If it's funding, then it's mismanagement, because I believe there's a tremendous amount of money being poured into VA. So I think it is mismanagement. But I know, for instance, they had one therapist at one point, and they were like, well, you can do group therapy. And I literally said to that person, so your solution to everybody with PTSD is to put them in one room with you, in a circle, have us all relive one another's trauma. You have a degree in psychology, and that's your solution. I said, seriously, you really need me to tell you that's a horrible idea? Because I have my own stuff to deal with. But now, because I have compassion for my brother and my sister to the left and right of me hearing their story, I'm going to take that. So that was it. And they were like, well, it's funding. Well, then who was doing your books? Because they suck at their job. But what they need to do is just put an active duty commander in charge of the VAs. Put an active duty commander, an active duty first sergeant, and some military personnel. You would get them things straightened out quick, because they're going to come in and say, negative, this is a standard. We're going to meet that standard, because the people that we serve have deserved and earned this. And I believe that would be the solution. all the VAs, active duty military people. You have people that still want to serve that get medically hurt, like myself. I could no longer serve in a role where I could deploy, but I wasn't ready to retire. And they could have easily had said, here, we're going to put you in a position at the hospital along with the commander. Now imagine in the Army, Navy, Air Force, Marine, Coast Guard, how many other people are in that position? Use them. If they're incapable of doing that, they're capable of running your hospital. Use them in those positions. Take the active duty personnel that have done this job, walk this path, and will respect those that have done it too, and treat the job and make sure that everyone under them understands what they're doing and the importance of it. But it needs to get better and it needs to hurry up. And I understand they say 70%, but again, I would tell them to pull the amount of people that are qualified to use the VA that don't use VA is probably going to be a more accurate representation of how dysfunctional the VA is.
Well, then I might be drawing a line that doesn't exist. And I tend to dip into a lot of catchphrases on this show, one of which is that I'm happy to learn something that I did not know. So if I'm drawing a line here from your point of view that doesn't exist, please, I want to learn.
No.
You correct me, because I want to ask you, is this a all right, let me back up. The current defense budget is just a hair under $800 billion.
Yes.
Senator Sanders has told us in real dollars, it's closer to 1.3 trillion.
Mm-hmm.
So is the lack, and again, we both have said it, we're not here to kick the VA in the teeth, but they're a good example of what we're talking about. Is what you find lacking at the VA, do you believe that to be a result of privatization of the military? Because we know now the military no longer, at the end of as we came to the end of our engagement in Afghanistan, there were more private contractors than soldiers.
Mm-hmm.
Soldiers don't erect their own tents and mess halls and medical facilities and laundry facilities any longer. Private contractors do that. Is the VA suffering from a private contractor issue?
I don't know. And that's a good question. Again, that's a really good question.
Because it seems to me very similar to what you and I just discussed about perhaps creating that pipeline of medical personnel who are deployed around the globe. And again, I'm taking the numbers from Senator Sanders. The United States has roughly 800 military installations in 184 countries. That's empire as much as anything else. There's medical folks in a lot of those places, but we could keep them in the system because they're already experienced. They're already, again, they're familiar with it. Is this a privatization issue? Is this not, you live in Pennsylvania, same as I, is this not dissimilar from like a charter school point of view where, $14,000 per student, but hey, we only spend $7,000, we'll put the other $7,000 in our pocket. Is that, am I creating a line that isn't there, Ty, or what are your thoughts?
Absolutely not. I think you're right. In the military, from the military perspective, I did not like the fact that everything we were doing was going towards contractors. We were always self-sustaining. And the fact that we started migrating away from that became confusing to myself, not only myself, but a lot of people. And I couldn't understand, wait, when did I came in 91. We put up our own tents. We dug our own holes. We built our own latrines. We did all that stuff. Ammo.
That's exactly what I was trying to get to, yeah.
And all of a sudden it went to, I turn around and there's a contract. I'm not trying to deny anyone employment, but in order for a military to function self-sustaining, meaning what happens when you, the civilian and contractor, break down? Then we have a disconnect in our pipe flow, in our supply flow, in our mission. When we used to be in the system that we were dependent on one another. I mean, there was still a little bit of logistical support from civilian contractors, but 90-something% of it came from us. Now it's to the point where you're right. We don't erect tents and things like that when we go places. It gets done by contractors, and I think that is,
For profit.
and then, yes, a lot of money, which I'm looking at them going, why did you take that away from us? It wasn't just about putting up tents for the soldiers. It also showed them teamwork, team building. It also, they took ownership and pride in doing it. I mean, granted, there were times I put up tents in the middle of nowhere that was hotter than hell that I'm like, oh man. But I understood when it got up, and that took pride when I walked out of it and looked at it like, yeah, I helped do that. Like, you owned it. It was, we did this. We took pride in maintaining our equipment, all of our equipment. Where when we took our tents down, we cleaned them. We put them up a certain way so that when we put them away, we knew what we were pulling out. Yes, I think the military is going too far with that. I had said that when I was in, because I worked at 2 academies, 2 schools where we had civilian instructors. Now, one was all military. It was the NCO Academy in Camp Parks, California. All right. And then I was another one, and I won't say the names because I don't want to offend anyone, but we did have some civilian instructors. Now, get me wrong, they were phenomenal. But my question is, this should be a person in uniform standing in front teaching. It should be. That's how we should keep it. You know, we should be a self-sustaining fighting force. Most of the allies and countries that we either consider allies or foes are self-sustaining. We're one of the few that are going away from that. And in 10 years, where are we going to be as a military? I won't recognize it. I'm sure no one else will. And you're right. We're taking a job that I could take 5 privates or specialists or to do, and we're hiring a contractor that's getting, $80 an hour to do the same job. Wait, we're already being paid because we get paid 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365. You know what I mean? So, and do I think that the VA, I don't know what the VA, I think, like I said, the problem at the VA, whatever caused it, I don't know. I just know the solution from my perspective is instill a military active duty leadership component in every single one. You do that, 10 years from now, you will solve a lot of your problems. And you give that command leadership team authority to hire and fire and people that aren't making a grade, and you hold them accountable, because that's what they will do. Those active duty people will come in and go, wait, we are not going to deal with the substandard act this. And yes, you'll have onesies and twosies, but I think overall it will increase. And people sit there and go, well, we don't want to have active duty. It's a VA. We're all military. We're all used to that. To say that we shouldn't have, what are you kidding me? I know plenty of retired guys that would embrace that love when they come in, they get called by their rank.
6:04 Eastern Standard Time. This is the Kennedy Effect, and we are live. It is the 14th of November, 2021. One more live program coming at you next week. We will then take a break for Thanksgiving. 3 shows in December, and then we are done for 2021. So only 4 live programs remaining in 2021, at least as we sit here today. We did a very special live program this past Wednesday. If you did not catch it, go to our Facebook page, That Other Side of Information. You can see it there. And of course, our YouTube channel, also called That Other Side of Information. See, we try to do these little pneumatic things to make it easy for you to remember. Our YouTube channel, That Other Side of Information, you can find it there. Wherever you might be watching across the Facebook universe, 90, if I'm correct, 90 plus shares across the Facebook universe this week. Stay right there and enjoy. If you would like to join a conversation, which is quite active and dare I say a tiny bit emotional, because this is an emotional topic. In our chat room right now, go to our home group Facebook page, That Other Side of Information. We have a good number of folks in there conversing with each other. Some comments that I will hope to get to as we move along. That Other Side of Information on Facebook. That's our home group Facebook page for all things surrounding this program. You can come over there right now, join the chat. We will take your comments, your questions, your stand up, stomp your feet, don't agree with me, whatever it might be. Talk to us through there. That's the best way to do it. We will open up the phone line later in the program as well. To our brothers and sisters and friends and family at hot101.net, thank you for allowing us and to your Sunday evenings yet again, whether you are listening on a desktop, laptop, tablet, phone, Bluetoothing in the car. And of course, now you can tell Alexa to play hot101.net. And we hope that you will, because I'm going to continue to tell Alexa to play hot101.net. And one of these days, someone is going to tell me, you triggered my Alexa. And I'm going to be very, very pleased with myself because I'm a little child. And I'm going to tell because I'm a spoiled little brat and a baby, and I think it's funny. So somebody's going to tell me, hey, you turned my Alexa on, and I'm going to be very pleased with myself in a very, very visceral way, like getting the largest bag of candy at Halloween. I'm going to be very happy with myself. Just if you don't know how to listen to hot101.net, it is extremely simple. And you should be listening to hot101.net. DJs on there that are talented beyond words that I can say. It makes what I do here look like child's play compared to what they can do 24/7, actually, all around the globe. Our name is our website address. It's hot101.net. If you have an Apple device, you can go to the Apple App Store and get our app. If you have an Android device, you can go to the Google Play Store. And for any other type of device or phone, you should try the TuneIn Radio app. Go up to the search bar, type in hot101.net, and you will be able to listen to us. You know, this new iPhone 12, I cannot seem to turn the ringer off. So you get to hear every time I get a text, which it's amazing how many texts I get during my show. I can't seem to turn the ringer off. It's a very odd thing. I can turn the sound down, but not the ringer. I have no idea what's going on with that. I guess I got a lot to learn about my new phone. But anyway, also TCP, the culture professional out of Lancaster. We welcome them and thank them and are proud to be part of their family as well. You have noticed a third face. I am definitely the third among the best lookings of faces here tonight. I'm definitely falling in last at that. As a friend of the program, part of the Kennedy Effect family, and I thought that these two gentlemen would get along brilliantly, as they have shared so many of the same experiences, maybe not together and at different points in time and different parts of the globe, but have shared so many of the same experiences. And I thought it would be nice to have them both here. And that is Christopher Kowardovich, who is it Montgomery? Why am I always forgetting?
No, it's Chester County.
Chester. Why am I always forgetting the county you're in for some reason? I have a mental block on the county that you're in. But I thought it would be great for. Yeah, well, I mean, I'm in Pennsylvania. That's kind of like throwing a dart at the board and somehow hitting something. But I actually thought you two would get on quite well, as you have both have shared so many of the same experiences. Again, not next to each other and probably not in at different times and at different parts of the globe, but you've both been there. And it would be interesting to get and not to mention that you do so much of the same work advocating for veterans now, on this side of the scale. I thought it would be great to have the two of you here, especially as I guess what you could call our Veterans Remembrance Armistice Day program. A couple of days late. The 11th, of course, was Veterans Day. Although, the old, what has become a bit of a cliche is actually very, very true. Every day should be Veterans Day. It's only about, correct me, gentlemen, if I'm wrong, I think over the total, it's only about 2% of the population ever serves in an all-voluntary military. Of 330 million people in the United States, only about 2% serve. So every day really should be Veterans Day.
Yeah.
So let me ask you, let's start off on a good note before we get back into the deeper issues, because I really actually do want to explore a bit deeper the budgetary questions, as it were, that surround the Department of Defense. The only government agency, by the way, that is not subject to and has not done an audit, I believe, in maybe 40 years. Let's start off on a happier note, shall we say. Ty, you mentioned in the first hour that you got to see places, you traveled to some places, you never ever thought as a kid that you would see. You mentioned Japan, Abu Dhabi. I'm blanking on so many others, but you rattled off a heck of a lot of places around the planet. Can you, both of you, tell me, I have a lot of friends who are from Europe, and they tend to always comment about how inward Americans can be. We don't travel. We don't learn other languages. We are not, as a population, generally speaking, as engaged as other populations can be. It's not, it's not a rare thing to hop on a train in London and not get off until Moscow and check out everything in between. It seems that Central and South American countries seem to just flow and and cross borders and interact with each other in ways that Americans just don't seem to do so. Is there a way for both of you, in your experiences, and maybe, if it's not unfair to ask, to maybe generalize a tiny bit with the folks that you served with, just the depth of growth that you experienced by seeing the rest of the planet, or at least seeing part of the planet, or a good part of the planet, certainly parts of the planet I'll never see in my lifetime? Is there a way to explain the growth, the personal development and growth that brings a person? Ty?
Well, yes. Again, first and foremost, you grow up when you're overseas. You tend to grow up because you don't have that family support. You're over there by yourself. You tend to grow up quicker. You're exposed to so many different cultures, not just in the country that you're in, but people from the military that are from different parts of the country. So you are in this giant melting pot, and it's a phenomenal opportunity for you to be open-minded, learning and experiencing so many different things. The perception of Americans overseas, I mean, at least from the interactions I had, wasn't always the most positive. People always said we were brash, arrogant, and self-centered. Living in different countries, when people see that you embrace their culture and you attempt to, mix into their culture and learn it, I've seen people go out of their way and say, "Hey, let me help you. What do you need?" It made me a much more well-balanced person. I would sit there and think of how blessed I was in some of these countries, and I'd see what real poverty was, and I would see some of their living conditions and go, "Wow, like poverty in the United States is not poverty in, say, the Philippines or some other places." It put things in perspective for me that we're not as bad as we as a nation may think. We do have problems, don't get me wrong, but compared to what is going on in other countries, we are pretty blessed. And that's the one thing I wish and hope people could get out and see, because if they did travel, they would not take for granted the things such as voting, the freedom of even, expressing their opinion. There are countries where you'll get taken around back and shot for saying you don't like the president or you don't like the leader. So for me, I've always said this, I wish more Americans could travel, not to just the designated hotspots, but really travel, see some of the countries where famine, disease, where, freedom of speech has been restricted, where people are basically, all their basic freedoms that we enjoy have been stripped. If people could actually see that, they would come home and have a new appreciation for the freedoms they endure and get to, just by being born here, have. To me, that's what I thought and I saw.
Chris, welcome back to the program. Thanks for making some time for us. What can you tell us on top of what Ty just mentioned about your travels and the personal growth that you thought it brought you?
Sure, wonderful, and it's great to be here with you, Ty, and everybody out there in Radio Land. It's just a great opportunity to talk about this really important topic, our veterans, and advocating for their needs. For me, I didn't have quite the same experience, and I think that's really important to understand how people have very different experiences. So mine was deployment to Iraq. So I didn't get to go towards a more developed country like Japan and experience the culture over there. I experienced culture in a combat zone. I experienced a little bit of being on a post in Kuwait, not really experiencing the culture. I stopped in the German airport. So not as much of the culture in a context of it. Most definitely, it did impact me on how blessed we are. And I really got along with a lot of the interpreters, and they talked about how things were under Saddam and how they didn't have a democracy, and how the fusion of the Arab culture with communism and the Ba'ath Party culture, what that was really like, and how dystopian the Soviet-supported state had been. And I realized how fortunate we were to have a democracy. And I look at these protesters who don't trust our election. They're going down in Chester County. They're saying, well, we didn't win, and they want like a one-party system on this other side. And I'm like, how do you not see how important the integrity of democracy is when you have went to another country where you've seen it without? The thing that made America great is the fact it's a democracy. I mean, I'm a queer person. I have faced, structural discrimination and such. I'm sure you have your own experience as a person of color that would be unique to add to this conversation. But to me, what was always, as from my perspective, is that, so it's really disheartening because people don't understand. They have a myopic viewpoint. They don't understand how important the integrity of a democratic system is. The other thing that's often forgotten is America. Sure, you can go from Moscow to London, and that's true. But you can also go from New York City to San Francisco, right, in the United States, and you can travel across the country. And America is not a monoculture. We are not one great melting pot. We are a diverse culture in our own context. And I think when you come from different communities and even regions and ethnic backgrounds and all these different things that come together in America. And when you're in the military, when you get to boot camp, you get changed because you have to start coming all together. And then you kind of can push forward together. You can't be divided at boot camp. You can't be divided going out. And pivoting back to what you were saying about the need to bring those veterans into the VA, because you feel comfortable. There's some comfort you feel when you step into an institution and you see another veteran, because it's a different type of being American in a different way. It's like you've had to experience, and I don't know what it was like during the segregated times, in the military. And there was different time periods, and I'm just speaking from my experience. And Ty, you probably have, we're from a younger generation than it was in the past, so I don't want to dismiss that, but I'm talking about our veterans today in the kind of more of a contemporary context. Really changes a lot of who you are, I think, and shapes you and helps you deal with being just realizing differences of American culture and bonding around things that break down so many of the structures that we have, in there. I mean, maybe not as much around gender, because military is very still segregated gender-wise. So maybe not as much. I would say I would make that disclaimer. I wouldn't really say necessarily gender, but around like racial and cultural differences, and just differences between even being somebody who lives in the freshwater states, very mild-mannered people, right? You got a lot of people in the military from the Illinois or Minnesota, and they're very mild-mannered versus a New Yorker from New York City, very charismatic and energetic. And finally, Pennsylvania. I served in the Pennsylvania National Guard, and what was really awesome has been my experience in understanding Pennsylvanians. When I deployed to Iraq, I deployed with people from all over the Commonwealth. We all came together to deploy as a state. So I had the real opportunity of working on a team with everybody from Pittsburgh. And so I got the culture within the Commonwealth and how much different that culture is in each places. And when I was the executive director of the Young Democrats, I started to really understand the differences. I understood what was going on in Pittsburgh. I knew people from Scranton. I started understanding the culture. And I think that multiculturalism, I think, is what that many people see as lacking in America. You get it. I got it on 3 different ways: a statewide, a national wide, and really embracing a Arab culture.
Ty, I don't want to shock you. I'm glad you're sitting down. But just in case you didn't know, you are a man of color. The military is a it is a melting pot, and it is, or at least should be, a microcosm of the greater population as a whole. Did you face anything in the military that would not shock us? I don't think, sadly, but probably should shock us in 2021. But were there racial barriers for you? Was there racial animus, or did you get to meet, perhaps I know I'm grossly overgeneralizing, but I'm trying to make a point. I hope you'll understand. Did you meet perhaps the poor white gentleman from West Virginia or Alabama who'd never met a black man before, and you bonded that way? Did you build bridges in the military, or did you face things that you didn't think you were going to have to face in the military?
Well, I definitely experienced a tremendous amount of racism. I will never say I didn't. Number one, when I went to a school, the military sent me to a school in Meridian, Mississippi, and it was the most horrible experience of my life, to the point where I couldn't wait to get the hell out of Mississippi. It just couldn't, but that wasn't for the military perspective. It was the minute I drove off base, we were harassed by the locals because we were black in an SUV. And anytime we went to go get something to eat. So as soon as we left the base, now the actual base, no. The moment I went off the base, yes. Now, here's an experience that I had when I was stationed in Kentucky. There was a gentleman with the same exact last name as myself, Caucasian man. And, I was like, great, we have the same name, and someone made a reference, it's the Holmes brothers. He didn't like that. And I just assumed maybe he had lost his brother or something. And I found out he did not. He said, I don't like your kind. What do you mean my kind? Jersey? I said, a lot of people don't like people from Jersey. I said, don't worry about it. That's not an exclusive club.
I've been back in PA almost 6 years, and people still hate that I'm from Jersey.
Exactly. So I was trying to
Jersey just got one of those reputations, I guess.
It does. So I was trying to lighten the situation, and he was like, no, I don't like people of color. And the young me would have probably just went off, ate crap, and just started, whatever, had a confrontation with them. I decided to take a different approach and see if there was a chance that we could build a bridge. Now, because he was at least open-minded, it didn't happen overnight. But within 6 months, we went out because our jobs required us to work together. So within a 6-month period, we started to, having to collaborate more, talk. One day we went out and grabbed lunch, and the late relationship built from there. That was really one of the most obvious ones, where a person of color, me being a person of color, he did not like. I can say by the end of my 2-year tour with him, I'm the godfather of his child right now. So we went from I don't like your kind to, but we had to work on it. There were plenty of ups and downs in this relationship where, the couple times where I thought we were going to come to blows. But yes, I did endure that. I did endure from leaders, superiors who would make certain comments. And in 91, you didn't always get an opportunity to say what you were, feeling in response back, because you didn't feel like you had that play. You had that leeway. I'm going to tell you, I was in Japan in 1992 when there was a young sailor killed in Sasebo. This man was stomped and beaten to death because he chose, not with other sailors, but he wanted to live his own truth because he wanted to be an openly gay sailor. They beat this young man for no reason. They beat him in a bathroom and left him to die. I can remember when it happened, and it rocked our base to the core. That was the very first time I had literally saw a commander literally, and I don't know if it was for theatrics or he genuinely cared. I remember we all being called to, a formation where he literally said, this does not happen. We do not do this. But this sailor, I keep saying soldier because that's where I retired, for no reason was attacked and killed because of his sexual orientation. And I found it to be horrible. And I tell people, for as much that I endured as a man of color, I'm going to be honest with you, because someone chooses to live a lifestyle someone doesn't approve of, that's even worse. And not worse for the treatment that they endure. I didn't understand it. Like, we had a guy in the ship who was one of my bestest friends, love him to death. People would literally walk up and say, he's gay. And I'm like, okay, and that means what? They're like, well, aren't you afraid? I'm afraid of what? I said, how ignorant are you? I didn't grow up with that. My father made sure you judge a person by the way they treat you. But yet I saw this religiously. Like, and I would look at people and go, so you want me to stop being friends with him because he really? Well, he could want to date you. Well, I used to tell people, I'm honored. That means he considers me good looking enough or attractive enough. But I couldn't believe that I would, and I lost friends over it because people were saying, well, you need to stop being friends. I have never been in a mindset of letting people tell me how to live my personal life. I'm like, I'm going to be friends with them.
Well, Ty, let me ask you this then. Is the, I don't like to call it a cliche because it sounds very dismissive that way. I'm not coming up with a better word at the moment. Is the ideal, at least maybe, that, I don't care who or what or gender, sexual orientation, color is next to me in the foxhole because we have to defend each other, or we should be fighting with, protecting each other. Is that so? Is your experience telling you and informing the audience that really isn't how it is, or is it just not as uniform as we wish it was? Or I'm kind of butchering my question here because it's a hard question to ask.
No,
but is
no,
it?
I hear your question.
Are we not living by that ideal?
In the 90s, when I saw that, yes. When you have to remember, when I crossed over to the Army, I'm now in a higher leadership position. And from my perspective and from the perspective of the leaders I serve with, I never once saw anything other than, this is your battle buddy, this is your battle buddy. When you go to war, you go to war together. I never saw anything, excuse me, I'm sorry. I never witnessed anything other than that. That was early in my career in the 90s when I saw that. I tell you right now, from the Army perspective, and my time from the Army didn't start until after 2001. It was, person can fire a gun, they're going to watch your back, they're going to do the job. That's all I ever saw from leadership. That's not throwing up a cover for anyone. That's exactly what I witnessed. And you have to remember, shortly after I got in, I also went to the level of a senior leadership. So I know from my perspective, if I did see or witness that, that was the first thing I would have dealt with. I did see issues individually where I'd have one knucklehead or one, I call him Neanderthal, who had this ignorant, biases against people of color, sexual orientation. Those are people we ended their careers very quickly. It was real simple. Either you come in and do your job and respect everybody for who they are. I'm not saying that you have to, but you'll keep it to yourself, because if I know about it and you're, out there doing it, I'm going to end your career, because we don't do that. You have the right to live your life the way you want. I had made that clear that I was always a component. And if anyone had a problem with that, they could either, 1, move on, 2, confront me, 3, keep it to their damn self, because I would not accept anyone judging someone. And I would always tell people when we do training, who are you to judge anyone? We're not here to judge one another. We're here to watch one another's back. That is it.
Chris, is that your experience?
So I came in a little later, and I did serve under Don't Ask, Don't Tell. And I'd heard of the stories in the 90s. It was interesting because they're absolutely, when you were talking about going off base, when I went to the Deep South, I mean, I didn't expect the racism the way it was. Like, I knew people were racist. I thought it would be more like kind of like a little snicker or something under kind of like the table. And I just remember not trying to conceptualize how bad the racism was. And I'm like, I'm under Don't Ask, Don't Tell, so there's no way. You felt base was a safe place. because like I mean, maybe because I'm gay, like, you know, you knew the violence and the crimes and everything, and like, oh my gosh. And be honest, even if you go into Southern Delaware, I mean, I've been in parts of Southern Delaware where I know I mean, maybe this is just me from a white person's perspective. You know what I mean? So it's just so overwhelmingly horrific.
You're absolutely right. I didn't tell the story. I was out riding motorcycles with a bunch of guys from my unit in Kentucky. We stopped at this small town to get gas, and I kid you not, the gas guy he walks out and he points to one of the guys. I'm the only person of color on a bike. He said, "What are you doing in this town with him?" Pointed right at me, and he said, "It's getting dark. Get him the hell out of here before they come get him." And the guys that I were with were all like, there was probably 10 of us. They said, "Let's go. Fill up the bikes, and we need to get the hell out of here now." I was driving back from Louisville to Fort Knox one time, and I saw a bonfire off to the side. And I said, "Oh, cool, bonfire." And the one guy told me, he said, "No, that's not the kind of bonfire you think. That is a Klan rally." And I said, "What?" He said, "It's a rally." He said, "If you ever see a bonfire, go." So yes, off base, you did see that. On base was, you're right. Your safe haven. You know, you still had people. I don't want people to be under illusion. You had people that would make sarcastic comments or something. And there were always instances where you'd hear someone getting into a fight because someone made a comment one way or another, and it ended up in a physical altercation. But yes, being off base was significantly worse in Mississippi and Kentucky. Woo, I didn't like it at all.
No.
So Ty, then there are significant parts of this country and certain political persuasions who will wrap themselves in the military head to toe and just, boy, we support our troops with our Chinese made magnets on the back of our cars. So I guess so I guess you're saying that in certain parts of the country, and ironically, some of the same parts of the country geographically, that's just a load of crap.
They support there so long as you are your place as a person of color. If you are a person of the LGBT community, you keep it to yourself. In other words, you can be that, but you can't express yourself and live your life. And that's sad. If you really support, then you support us all. I told people, I never distinguished from, I didn't care LGBT, I didn't care trans, I didn't care anything. My only question when I had soldiers sit in front of me was, what is your goal here? Are you willing to do your job? Are you going to cover each other's six? And are you prepared to work as a team? Simple as that. But yet, I see some of these politicians, they'll say this, and then, yes, I love the soldiers, and then they will vote against certain bills. I don't get that. If anyone is brave enough to raise their hands, why question them? And why judge them because of sexual orientation? That is asinine. That is an oxymoron. It doesn't even make sense. You want to, on one hand, pat them on the back saying, "Thank you for your service." But then on the other hand, push them out the door saying, "Well, because I don't like you being LGBTQ, get out." Or, "I don't like you being a person of color, goodbye." Or, "Female, I don't think you should be doing that job." It's an asinine system. It's a broken system.
Ty, you told us, you let me know that you're heading off to another meeting at 7, that you're going to be leaving us. And here's where I really wanted the two of you to talk. So I'm going to ask a question, and I'm stepping back. You are a board member at Nepa Youth Shelter, and you are also the founder of A Veterans Vision. And I know that Chris does a tremendous amount of work in the veterans community as well. So tell us about those two things that you do. And I'm stepping back and let the two of you talk until you have to leave us. So tell us about those two things, and you two have a chat, and I will step back until you have to go.
Well, Chris, first of all, I'm board member of the NEPA Youth Shelter, and what the NEPA Youth Shelter is, a safe haven for the children, the teenagers of Scranton. It's a no questions asked. Come to our center from Monday through Friday from 3 to 9. And we provide to not only a safe haven, but we provide food, clothing, the ability to wash their clothes, coats, toiletries, non-perishable items for them to take home for their families. We provide mentorship, guidance. We do classes for LGBTQ. We bring in speakers that will talk to not only people in the LGBTQ community, but all of our members so that they understand and don't have this negative bias that society tends to put on them, saying, well, you shouldn't understand negative. We have a very strict rule. There is no judgment. You will not call someone out of their name. You will not use derogatory names. There's a level of respect that is required to participate there. And this is the true story. One day I was sitting, you have a door, we have a check-in. And here's another thing. The only adults there are the adults that are volunteered, have been checked. Okay. We have specific people that have to align with our beliefs of open community to actually work there. We had a young man come in one day and I was sitting at the desk and he goes, phew, like he took this really deep breath. And I said, you just run here? He said, no, I can breathe. I said, what do you mean? He said, Mr. Ty, this is the first place I feel like I can breathe where it's safe. And it made me sick to my stomach that I spent 25 years wearing a uniform. And a young man, because he chooses to live a certain way, is telling me that this is the very first time of the day at 3:30 in the afternoon, he can breathe because he feels safe here, because he doesn't feel safe outside his door to be himself. And that struck a chord. So at the NEPA youth shelter, that's what we do. We try to mentor, provide guidance, help kids in whatever way we can navigate this distorted, crazy world that we are handing them. So that is one of the things that I'm involved with. A veterans vision came up from, I was a part of several groups, veterans groups, and there was so much red tape that I got frustrated. I can't stand red tape. I'm a reactionary person. I like to do things. If there's a problem, solve it. Chris, you understand that? Wearing a uniform. We solve problems. We'll figure out what caused it later. Well, that wasn't what was happening in some of these groups. So I created a veterans vision as a way to solve problems. Now, the misconception is a veterans vision only supports veterans. It's the opposite. It's people that are veterans that want to continue to serve their community. We want to provide support to a community that supported us through our deployments, our brothers and sisters, and has given us so much. Now we want to give back and continue to support with food drives, clothing, mentorships, whatever way we can be effective in our community. That's what we're going to do. But we still also, because I will never stop helping veterans get their benefits, redo their, when they, they only have 50% and I'm talking to them and I believe they should be higher, reapplying, trying to get them appointments, get them help for housing, food, whatever they need. We also take that on, but I didn't want people to think that we specifically focus on veterans. We focus on everyone, but we will always, and I will always be a very strong vocal advocate for veterans because I don't think enough is being done. I know some people say, well, you guys get this and you get this. It's not as easy as they think. It's still like a hamster wheel trying to get things done for our brothers and sisters who have earned this. So that's pretty much, that's what a veterans vision is. It's more of a reactionary than a lot of other organizations. If you called me up today and said a veteran is in need of food or someone, I literally drive to people's houses. I have the food in my car. I have shopping bags and I open up the doors and I say, take what you need. And there's no questions asked. I don't need to see your ID. I don't need to see anything. I don't need to know your story. All I need to know is that you have people that are hungry and they need food and I'm here to help.
That is beautiful, Ty, and it's a little hard. I was thinking about George Floyd when you said you help that person breathe. And sorry, I didn't expect this to be so emotional. And I see you as the type of person who should be a cop. This is the pipeline. This is the problem that I have with the pipeline. When we have people like you in the pipeline question, we need more people like you out there in the police force. As a queer person, I'm seeing, wow, you're actually doing the work of what our law enforcement should be like. You are the person who is putting our communities first. And isn't what a cop should be to serve and protect. And isn't that part of the problem, that we're not looking for the right people that can do these, could be wonderful. You could get somebody to breathe. I was a medic. Emergency medicine all comes down to, can a person get that oxygen to their lungs? And I was thinking about that, and here you are, you're creating the real work. And shouldn't we be showing that these are the type, you are the type of person I'm seeing, that thank you for your service as a police officer. Thank you for what you're doing right now, because this is what the country needs. We need to get people to feel that's what it's supposed to be. Fear is the excitement without the breath. We need breath to live. It's our most precious thing, more than money or anything. We can't live without it. And at this moment, you really are just so beautifully showing something. And I wondered what you thought of people like yourself on the police force and the military who are multicultural, who go through those experiences and have everything we talked about, how we, the experiences you went through, and you worked with a racist, you had to work with a racist. So now, and you had to work with LGBT, you had to work with everybody. And isn't that really what law enforcement should be?
You're absolutely right. And my father served as a police officer for 30 years. My son is currently a police officer, and I spent some time as a police officer. I tell people, yes, police officers are supposed to be everything. They're supposed to be there to help in your darkest moments. They're supposed to be an advocate for you. I really, truly, I understand, and some people may find this unpopular. There are some people that go from the military right to being a law enforcement officer that should not. I think there needs to be a better vetting process. I understand a lot of law enforcement agencies see that service and they say thank you, and they want to, and I appreciate that. But I believe there needs to be a better, much better system to pros and cons. First of all, you have to determine, get access to the service record. What problems did this person have? Did they have any problems where they did not like people of color, LGBTQ? That's something that should be made aware of, because you could potentially be hiring a loose cannon. My son works with a gentleman that's in the process of being terminated because of this person's belief. This person has on their body cam, not his, on someone else's body cam, he was expressing it, not knowing that it was recording. And then, of course, when he caught, oh, that's not my beliefs. Wait, you just said this. Well, that was in the heat of the moment. That's your true self. So I always say that we need to do a much better job at vetting. I wrote something, and I will send it to you both, where I sent it to the Scranton Times, where I used to try to explain people and said, listen, as a Black man, as a former law enforcement officer, son of a cop, father of a now police officer, and a man that has been stopped while walking in my own neighborhood, where I own a house, and literally questioned. I'm telling you, I see both sides. And I ended it with saying, for those people that don't understand the fear in George Floyd, I said, here's what I'm going to ask you to do. Lay on your stomach. Ask someone to come lay on your neck for 9 minutes and 20 seconds. And I said, right before you black out, I truly believe you will understand what George Floyd experienced. Do I think George Floyd was a saint? No. But do I believe he needed to die? No. Do I believe that the young man that I talked about in Sasebo that was killed because he wanted to live his true self? No. How dare we decide that? We don't get to pick that. We need to do better. And I'm not talking about I'm talking about our law enforcement, our government officials. We as society need to do better and understand that this is America. You're supposed to be allowed to live your true self. We say that, but then we want to put restrictions on it. It is mind-boggling. And I said this in the 90s. What are we doing? Don't ask. I couldn't believe there was don't ask, don't tell. And my buddy, I'll say his last name, Reyes, he once said to me, he said, why are you still my friend when everyone else is saying? I said, because you're a good person. That's all that matters to me. I said, what else is there? You're a good person. You treat me good. That's all. That's all that matters at the end, at the basis of everything. People have forgotten that you judge a person on their core, their spirit, their heart. No, because they're not like me. They're different and I don't like them. What if we were all the same? We'd be a very boring race of people. So I think in society, we need to get away from that. I think in law enforcement, there needs to be a much, much more in-depth process, because I know a gentleman that I deployed with that came back with me, and I know I have issues. And he was a cop for a short time, and thankfully he walked away from it before he got himself in trouble and harmed somebody. But he was on the job for 4 years, and he shouldn't have been. And it was as easy as he walked in, because granted, the law enforcement agency said, "Hey, he's done 15 years. Here you go. Here's a job." And I understand what they were trying to do, but they could have done more harm than good.
Go ahead, Chris. You look like you got. Go ahead.
Oh,
Yeah, I'm sorry,
sure.
Chris.
You guys talk to each other till
Sure.
Ty has to
The
go,
other
please.
thing was, yeah, I mean, I just think it's so powerful, the narrative that I really appreciate you kind of explaining it, because I think that's a better way of looking at it through the venting process, was trying to figure it out, because on the one hand, you have things like trigger control, right? You have a lot of experience, and also in, I think police departments also look at funding, right? And they look at, okay, this person's trained to a certain level, and that training you talk about in the military has massive budgets. But I think one of the things we forget about, and it goes back to another point you were saying earlier in the show about getting the mental health when they need it. If we get people able to feel better and able to get into a better mental health, call it peer support. I think what we really need is a lot of peer support from the military community.
Oh, yeah.
And the veterans, and helping them, and training, and even people who are disabled. I think if you are disabled for PTSD, why can't we get them working part-time at the VA? Why can't we help those people who are, and keep your benefits and get a paycheck too? Because, with this inflation, and they cut back on the combat related specialty compensation, not fully funding the programs, we need to be taking the money out of the Defense Department and putting it into these things like fully funded veterans pensions. I think a lot of that suicide that's going up is we started cutting veterans benefits back. We didn't fully fund the combat related specialty compensation. We cut GI Bills down to, it's only 95%. Well, in the time of 7% inflation or whatever it is, we need to be expanding veterans benefits. I really, truly think that's part of the equation. Like, you can't just handle the mental health. You also have to handle the economic issues and helping veterans integrate into communities. I think you're doing such a great, I'm hearing such a fabulous job of taking those skill sets. You know what I mean? You understand from being on the streets and being in the military where somebody needs that kind of support, a place where they can breathe.
Yes.
Right? Like you're understanding these things. And I think rather than, I think we've looked at veterans in this way of negative, like, oh, you PTSD, you come back, you're not well anymore. Go out there in society, come to this group and talk in a group. And sometimes it's easier. I'm seeing more and more of this. It's had this happen with all the sexual trauma victims. They want to talk to me because they want to talk about their PTSD, but they don't want to be triggered. So they'd rather talk to somebody who went to war. I'm like, that's fine. I was a medic. I did mental health evals and stuff. I understand working with them and talking with them and giving that peer support they need. Like, you're the peer I want to talk with because I don't want to be triggered constantly. And I think there's a lot of ways of integrating community. The veterans are part of a bigger community. And I think we're really lacking in this country community. And it's part of what veterans are coming back from, because you come from this experience of great community. And then you come back and you're like, well, why? This is what America should be. And even though we've got our problems in the military and there's still, discrimination and everything, and there's still major problems, lots of parts of the military are better than our culture. And as fewer people have gone down to service, I think America is losing a bit of like our soul. I don't know. What do you think? I want to hear what your viewpoint on that is.
I 100% agree with everything you just said. We are losing what our basis for our society. We're losing our soul. We're losing empathy. We're losing community, understanding. I tell people, I said, back in the day when I grew up, you know what a cell phone was? It was my mother knowing exactly. I was at one of three kids' house. She could call, hey, could you send my son home? Go. Or our parents could drive around the neighborhood, see the bikes all gathered on the front lawn. Okay, that's where my kid is. We've lost that, and it saddens me. that we have lost the innocence of our country, our nation. It's gone. Every day it's stripping more away. Our kids are having to grow up faster. You said something very important I wanted to touch on. Everyone talks about how our training, and we have vast training, but our training does not align with the police. Military and police tactics are not the same at all. When people say that oh, because you're in the military, you can do, they're doing a disservice to police officers because it's a very different job and much more sensitive. So I tell people all the time, stop doing that. You cannot just say because you're in the military, you can do this, or because you're a cop, you can do this. They're two different jobs. Because you carry guns, you do the jobs in very different ways. So I think that's another thing people need to take and understand. It's two different jobs. And that's when I said earlier that when I was doing 6 months military, 6 months law enforcement, the line started getting blurred to the point where I couldn't mentally shift and go, wait, I have to, because it's not just I have to shift the way that I'm going about doing my job. And I told them, I said, it's getting blurred. And I'm not sure if I'm understanding and I'm crossing the two over. And I don't want to get myself or put myself in a position where I cause harm to someone or do something wrong because I did not realize that I'm actually acting like a military guy when I'm on the police right now. So that's another thing I think needs to be looked at. Just because you're trained in the military does not qualify you to be a police officer. Sometimes it could disqualify you. You know, I'm not saying, and there's some, and before people jump, there are some people that make the transition smoothly. Yes, and I'm proud of them, and I'm grateful for them. But I've also seen some that have not made the transition smoothly, or I've had conversations with people who have said, "Well, hey, you know, he was in the military. He could," and I'm like, "Did you know this person's background? I knew this person was kicked out for disciplinary reasons. Are you sure you want to put a gun in their hand? Like, do you know what their DD 214 says at the bottom? What that code means? They were put out because they didn't know how to work well with others. If they could not work well with others in a military environment where we have structure, constant structure, when you're in the police, it's less. So how do you think they're gonna, with less control and more freedom to affect the community, how do you think they're going to behave when there's less to check them? Until all of a sudden you have a guy who kneels on someone's neck for 9 minutes and 20 seconds to realize, wait, we made a mistake.
So Ty, there has to be more of a qualification
Much
in that
more.
transition other than the fact you fired a weapon in the military, you're good to go out on the streets. Is this a case where, and again, the fear of oversimplifying, you know, and kind of just using labels, but I'm trying to use it for effect. The difference between active military combat situations compared to our police officers who were supposed to be public safety.
Yes.
Not just, and actually Christopher and I talked about this when he was on before. You know, we've seen this evolution of our police departments from, you know, Andy and Mayberry to a properly militarized type force. We've gone from, you know, Andy and Mayberry didn't even carry a gun. I get it. It was a TV character. Just stick with me, folks. But we're talking about, you know, folks who didn't even carry guns and who who sometimes just did traffic, you know, helped folks through an intersection. The public safety, the peacekeeping, so to speak, up to the semi-militarized force. I mean, it's not, there is supposed to be a delineation. A police officer's job is not the same damn thing as a soldier's job.
No, but I believe the reason why the police officer's job it has evolved is also because of society. I mean, let's look at the weapons that are currently on the streets right now that people have access to. So police had to match them. So I never wanted to be that I'm anti-police because, well, again, as a former law enforcement father, uncle, son, I support law enforcement. I do believe a lot of what has been adjusted is to match society. And we need to be able to pull it back in society. I don't know if we can. But yes, you're right. It's training. the police are not supposed to be in this mode right now. That's not how they were created. But unfortunately, our society is at a point right now where in some places, I mean, let's look at Detroit. They call Chicago Chirac. Like you ask people from Chicago, they call it Chirac. I was stationed in Illinois. Yes, there are some parts of Chicago. Make the mistake of going to late at night and you might get your car shot up. They don't play around. So if you're a police officer there, you're not going to walk around with a 9mm. You're going to need more than that. You're going to need an AR because you have to match the weapon that you are currently facing. So I believe our police force has evolved, sadly, due to our society. And I get it. Everyone's always saying, you know, I have the right to bear arms. When our forefathers had wrote that, there wasn't a police force. It was so that you could protect your family against animals, intruders, whatever, coyotes. They didn't envision the society we currently have right now and say, yeah, we all should be gun-toting nutcases. We're not. There are plenty of responsible people. But we
And the
do have a problem.
and the well-regulated militia clause. We always seem to just kind of
We always
close our eyes to that bit,
Yeah.
don't we? Where the militia weapons were kept at a central armory. That's why we call them armories. Still to this day, we tend to forget the well-regulated militia
And
clause.
people don't read that. And I say to people all the time when they start screaming my Second Amendment right, I said, you're talking, it was a very different society. And I have always said this, and this is, I did ask my wife, she made sure they postponed our meeting. I have long said that our Constitution should be amended seriously so that it applies to today's society. So what you do is take an independent, Democratic, and Republican representative from each state. You lock them in a room for the next 2 years and say, amend it to make sure that it complies, that it works to today's society. Because that is a basis and foundation of our existence. But we can't, every time we want to do anything with gun control, people want to think it's taken away. No, it's not. But we have to find a way to get control of those who are not acting in the best interest of all of us to get control and regulate guns. I have guns. I'm not going to ever give up my gun.
And it's interesting when we talk about statistics overall America, how many things there's stuff that gets like 90% support with gun, universal background checks, assault rifle bans, high level of support of all Americans. And
that percentage, Chris, I'm sorry, I'll let you finish, but that percentage of polling in the high 80s into the 90s goes not just for Americans as a whole, self-identified Republicans, NRA members in the high 80s and low 90s who support deeper, stronger, quicker, more universal background checks for weapons purchases. And a majority, even again, a majority, I want to say, I'm working from memory. Somebody can correct me if they wish. In fact, I want you to correct me if I'm wrong. I want to say that the last poll of NRA members was in the 64% range against having these military style assault weapons on the street. And that's NRA members, not the ones who run it and who are making millions from it and funneling millions. The members, the if you will, street level, on the ground members who pay their dues to the NRA. Sorry, Chris, I didn't mean to jump you there. I just wanted to. It's not a small stat.
No, I think those are the facts that we need to and this is a breakdown of society, right? We have this massive over policing. We have this problem. We want to fix it, and it goes back to, I think, this whole concept. Do people understand what it's going to be like without a democracy? I guess my experience overseas was seeing a former country without a democracy, and that really impressed my worldview. And I've got along very well with a lot of the interpreters. There's some cultural crossover, having been Ukrainian American and being with the Iraqi culture, a lot of similar foods and cultural differences. So I bonded with a lot of them, and it was really interesting to open up. And they described, I kept thinking of things they described. It was like living under the Trump administration again. Like when Trump came into power, they're like, all you're going to see is Saddam all the time on television. It's going to be all about Saddam. That's what it was like over there, they told me. And this is the problem is we need to with the guns, like, and this far right, you buy your pay to play system, and I think it's all interconnected, and it's this tyranny of a minority in a lot of ways, of people buying it and are we going to be an oligarchy where we can't, it keeps you living in fear, keeps the people living in fear. We can't get common sense gun reform.
Ty and I talked earlier in the program about the privatization of the military. Please, before I reset the program here at the top of the hour, please keep in mind, folks, and both of my guests, and actually, Chris, I think you and I talked about this when you were here before. Most, if not all, of the missiles that are mounted underneath our fighter jets, cruise missiles, tow missiles, are all made with Chinese computer chips. Now, if we should end up in an armed conflict with China, and no one wants that, do you think they're still going to be selling us computer chips?
Nope.
It is 7:03. We are entering our final hour of the program. Ty has been kind enough to delay himself a tiny bit, which was unnecessary, sir, but very, very kind of you. The way this conversation is going, what it shows is that we need to continue it. So we will have to schedule another time for you. Poor Chris thinks he keeps getting away from this show, and I keep dragging him back in. So we will.
I love every minute of it. I love it. I'll come on anytime you want me to.
And it sounds.
Next time, I promise.
And it sounds to me like, Ty, you need to travel to Chester County, and Chris, you need to travel to Scranton, because what the work that the two of you are doing could probably link it all together and help. It's just a lot of the same stuff. But it's 7:03 Eastern time, entering our final hour of the program. Ty has to leave us around 7:15. Wherever you are on Facebook, it's That Other Side of Information is our home group Facebook page. Hot101.net, the Apple App Store, the Google Play Store for Android, and the TuneIn Radio app. And of course, you can tell Alexa to play hot101.net. And TCP, the Cultured Professional, out of Lancaster, proud to be on their channel, their Facebook, their Roku, their radio channel as well. The program continues to grow and succeed, and we are grateful for that. Every single last one of you, every single individual that listens to this program is valued, welcomed, and respected here, and we appreciate every single one of you. We could not do it without you. If you missed any of tonight's program or any of our programs, please, the best place to go is YouTube. YouTube.com/That Other Side of Information. It is our repository, our library of all of our previously recorded episodes. And of course, everywhere that the program is shared on Facebook, you can always scroll through the various timelines and find us there as well. If you have questions or comments, you can put them in the chat. We will open up the phone line probably after Ty leaves us. We don't want to lose any time there. And, we will have to have both of these gentlemen back yet again. This is a topic that is not going away. We are not making less veterans, folks. We're only making more of them. And they are going to need the advocacy and the services and the so on. And so on is a very rude way to say that, but you get my drift. The advocacy, the issue advocacy, the personal help, they're going to continue to need it. It's always been one of my contentions, and not everybody agrees. Ty mentioned a couple of things, and not everybody's going to like what I have to say here. Well, you might not like what I have to say. I think one of the best way to support veterans is to stop making them, and at least we seem to be getting back toward that fact. Ty, I know you have to leave us in around 10 minutes. I want to hit you with two whoppers that you're not going to be able to probably answer in 10 minutes. Your thoughts on how things ended in Afghanistan, and what Chris kind of mentioned. Where were you on January 6th? And what were your thoughts about it, especially knowing that some of your fellow veterans and fellow police officers, some active, by the way, were part of that crowd? Those are two whoppers of a question, and I'll let the two of you talk to each other. I'll step back again, but those are whoppers of questions. I get that, probably unfair in just 10 minutes, but Afghanistan and January 6th.
Afghanistan was a disaster, and here's why. And everyone says, I expected some chaos. We weren't leaving Vegas. We were leaving a combat zone, but we could have done better, much better. And what I say from that perspective is whoever was advising the military, the president should have been relieved of their duties. There should have been a better plan in place, executed. There should have been working on that for months. I don't understand how in the last minute we were scrambling to get people out. The fact that the military was able to get that many people out, that right there is amazing. Yes, the largest evacuation, I think, in the history of the U.S. military. But there were certain things that we needed to do.
A job, Ty, that really only the military could do.
Yes, but there were certain things we needed to do, destroy equipment. And there are certain things we could have, we always say, we don't ever let the enemy get our equipment. We destroy it before we turn it over. That should have been destroyed. Okay, this is not a Republican or Democrat. It should have been done better. And I put that responsibility on the military leaders. How did you allow this to go so chaotic so quickly without having more assets available? I understand we didn't want to put more on the ground, but when you had to have some sense of this is bigger than we think, and that's what you have planning operations for. So that I just think we could have done a much better job of that, and we failed in that sense. We were successful in getting as many people out as we did, but we failed miserably in equipment and the manner in which we did get out. January 6th, I was sitting here glued to my TV like everyone else. I've always said I'm a big component of people's rights. Served 25 years, not because I made a ton of money, but because I believed in your freedoms, the freedoms that you have is granted to us by the Constitution and protecting those. But to witness what I saw on TV disgust me, angered. I said everybody in the military that was involved should not only be held accountable, but should lose their benefits forever. If they're retired, then they should lose all of their benefits. Because I don't care, I don't want to hear this where they're no longer serving. When we swore our oath, it's to all enemies, foreign and domestic, and to actually use the training that you receive from the United States military to possibly try and overthrow a democratic process is disgusting. You dishonor the uniform, you dishonor the service, and honestly, you should lose every single one of your benefits. So the law enforcement, they should go to jail because you knew what you're doing. And there were officers assaulted. An officer died. More than one died. And they died doing that job, your fellow brothers and sisters.
Let me follow up. The Afghan withdrawal was an agreement originally negotiated by the Trump regime.
Yep.
Should the Biden administration have either A, ignored that, or renegotiated, or at least extended the timeline? Or is it just as simple as you knew this agreement was in place, so you knew what the dates were, and as you said, why the hell did we wait till the last minute?
Well, there were many things we could have done. Number one, we should have renegotiated. We couldn't ignore it because ignoring it would have put us back into a full arms conflict with them. That's what I honestly believe. I believe if they would have ignored it, we would have had to deploy 50,000 troops immediately. But what they should have done is going in there with the point that we're going to get out, but we're going to do this way. We should have negotiated from a point of power, not what was dictated to and written to by the Taliban and the president, which people don't realize that when the president negotiated directly, President Trump negotiated directly with the Taliban, he actually started the framework to eliminate the government in Afghanistan because you just cut them out. You just weakened their position by doing that. That was, the writing was on the wall. President should have came in and said, we're going to get out. And I think we should have did a show of force. We should have upped our troops and said, we're going to get out. We're going to do it here, but we need more time because we're not going to just leave people behind. We're not just going to leave equipment, but we're not going to be also forced with attacks. So we're going to show force. We should have deployed more. I know some people say, well, that runs the risk. There's always a risk. Got it. but we should always negotiate from a position of strength, never weakness. And we should have went in there and said, we're going to leave and we're going to execute this. This is a realistic time frame, not what was negotiated with the past president. And granted, that's why you negotiate. Look, we'll leave, but on the way out, this is it. You know, we would have negotiated differently. We should have. Again, for the military, I don't know what the conversations were, and I can be Monday morning quarterbacking it because they might have tried this. I don't know. You'll never know the whole truth. They may have tried this and it failed. I don't know. If that's the case, then yeah, they did everything right. They may have been told by the Taliban, that's the date. If you don't leave, we will start doing suicide attacks. Yes. If that's the case, then yes. So from what I have read and heard, we should have tried to negotiate a different time frame. As far as the Afghan government, they were screwed the moment that negotiation was done without them. They were dead in the water. I'm sorry. Anybody that's ever been in that region will tell you, they were dead in the water right after that. You just cut their knees out. They were done.
And gentlemen, before Ty has to go, I'll let you, to both of you, I'm fortunate enough that Chris is staying with us, so Chris and I can backtrack a bit. But before you have to go, Ty, being in the military, taking the oath, being a member, you know, the civilian police of a police officer, I don't think it's an exaggeration to say that the American experiment was perilously close to ending on January 6th.
Oh, yeah.
It was treason. Sorry, treason is generally referred to as a foreign effort. It was sedition at a minimum.
Yes.
Does your experience both as a military veteran and a police officer inform you any differently about what happened on January 6th? Do you have conversations with friends, family, coworkers, etc., that folks, you don't understand how close it was? This was damn near the end of it. This was Kristallnacht. This was the assault on the Munich beer hall. We were that close. And oh, by the way, we're not done.
No.
You know what we call, you know what you call a failed coup attempt? Rehearsal.
Dress rehearsal.
Yep.
I don't have conversations too often with people because, you know, I'm in Pennsylvania. There are some people that, hey, this and that. And I tell people, I said, I was also in the middle of an election. So they always tell you, do not, as I ran for school board, do not get into those conversations. What I will tell people is just till the day I left, whether I had served a day in the military or as a law enforcement officer, my moral compass, the way I was raised, told me that January 6th was wrong in every single aspect. What we witnessed was nothing short of, and some people try to say, well, it's the same as what our founding. No, it's not. It is not even close. And they do say that, then I will tell people, then you need to go back and read your history because it's two very different things. We had a person who was trying and grasping at straws to keep power by any way, and he turned a mob on the U.S. House and his own vice president, U.S. House of Representatives. They turned a mob, and for people to say that was a peaceful, Stevie Wonder's blind ass can tell you that was a terrorist attack. Look at the video. I watched the 4 hours at the Capitol. Did you watch that yet?
The documentary.
Documentary where the police officer the one that had the mind heart attack, they dragged him to the crowd. They were about to kill him, and it had not been for that one giant man who said no and brought him back to the front. That officer would have been beaten to death. And for people that want to scream, police, all lives matter, police lives matter, it matters when, because on that day,
it can't just matter when it's politically convenient.
Exactly. On that day, the very people being assaulted, hundreds of them, were police officers. Watch the footage. It's 4 hours of different camera angles. So anyone that says that tries to argue with me, I'll tell them, you and I are two different people and have two different values, and that will never change. I'm disgusted, disheartening, and I'm very scared for the future for what's next, because I understand it completely. It was a dress rehearsal.
And we still don't know, by the way, who built that gallows, what happened to it. No one knows even where it is. It didn't just spring out of the ground because it was made out of wood. Somebody built it.
So
And
that's,
so, and for some very convenient reason, and I know I'm dancing on the head of a pin here, but no, there's no video footage of it being built. We don't know who built it. We don't know where it came from, and we don't know where it went. Honestly, yeah. Well,
it
it's
just, it's crazy. I just, believe me, I've heard people try to justify it, and I've just looked at them and I shake my head going, there's nothing I can say to you. If you can look at that footage and honestly tell me there was nothing wrong, you can Google YouTube the video where the guy goes, we can take that building. And then the other guy goes, then what? Heads on pike. You built the gallows to hang people. I mean, it was peaceful. Trust me, I've been in combat situations that were at that level, same level. That was not peaceful. And it's funny because I've heard the same people who justify that try to tell me that a Black Lives Matter rally is the same. I'm like, if a Black Lives Matter rally had done that, you'd have been calling for the execution of everyone in attendance. So let's not mix apples and oranges. Gentlemen, I do need to step off. I greatly appreciate being here.
before you go, I have two things. Bad news for you. You're part of the family now, and I'm going to call on you again.
I'm on it. Thank you. Thank you.
Second thing, please tell all of our audience where to find you, how to find you, if they need your services, how they can follow you, how they can contact you. Hell, if they want to donate or volunteer, please, floor is yours. Tell everybody how to find you.
Hi, everyone. If you want to contact me, if you need help, if you know someone that's in need of help, if you go to a Veterans Vision on Facebook, I'm in Scranton. It's real easy. You pull that page up and I tell people, that's the quickest way to contact me because obviously I get prompted. With email, I would give everyone my email, but because I'm on so many different committees, I tend to get about 80 emails, 90 emails a day. So I might not get it. With Facebook Messenger, instantly I get it. So I tell people, if you go to a Veterans Vision on Facebook, you will find me. And if it's questions, if it's assistance, if you or your son or daughter or cousin is contemplating joining the military, I also do that. And I walk them through the journey because I know I've had plenty of soldiers sitting in front of me who were told they were going to do one job, got there and realized they're going to be doing another, and realized that for the next 4 years, this is the job they're going to be doing. So I always tell people I'm also there to provide that level of guidance. So if you find me on a Veterans Vision on Facebook, real quick, I'll even show you what the picture is. And I'm sorry. So you'll know it's me. And I just, like I said, I'm looking for partnerships, friends, information because no one does anything alone. I don't know. Can you see it? Does that work? I'll
Yeah,
send it to
not
you.
quite because because the background is kind of. But I put the
right now.
I put the name of the group in the chat on the show.
Okay. And I
folks
just
will be able
text
to
you
find.
the actual profile so
Oh,
people will
please.
know because
Absolutely.
there's a couple. I just
Sure.
texted to you, but again, I greatly appreciate Chris. I look forward to having more conversations, meeting you, Jeff. I'm grateful to be here, humbled and honored. I will be available whenever you want to do it again. I love this. Thank you. You're doing great work, and I appreciate this.
We're gonna have to do it again, and I know you carved out time for your next meeting, and I forgive me if I made you late, but I'm so grateful that you were here. Truly, I really am, and we have to do this again because there's so much more, that we didn't get to, and it's so important.
Let's
do
it again. Let's do it soon because we're just scratching the surface of a bigger problem. We need to, and it needs to be talked about. I always tell people, in order to solve problems, you have to have the uncomfortable conversations.
Yeah.
There are a lot of people that don't want to have those. We're not going to solve problems until we start having these conversations. I do need a gentleman step off. I'm sorry.
Thank you so much, Ty Holmes.
Wonderful.
Take care, gentlemen. Thank you.
Chris, I apologize if you felt ignored there. I just knew our time was running
We got
short.
plenty of time. You can have me come on anytime you want. So
follow up a little bit if we could, please, about
so
what Ty had to say. Both
is if we had President Trump in, let's pretend President Trump is still had horrifically won re-election. And what would the Afghanistan withdrawal look like? His was in May. We had to negotiate, okay, with a plan that was already in place by an administration We had to negotiate to get to August. Okay.
Wasn't the Trump plan that President Biden had, I guess, in fairness, you would have to say chose to live by. It was pretty much a grenade thrown into the room with the pin pulled, wasn't it? It's just a matter of when it was going to explode.
Right.
And it was done that way very purposefully.
Correct. That is the correct assumption. Let's think about foreign policy with Donald Trump for a moment. Private meetings with Vladimir Putin, Kim Jong-un. I mean, let's just face it. This was a disaster. He didn't respect democracy. So he has no respect, really. The man doesn't really respect the democratic process. He doesn't really like democracies. He wants to be friends with dictators. And so he's seen a chance to take it into the Taliban and went with it. I think if we look at the grenade and the fallout from the context, I think there was problems that Biden did do, but we are trying to take this horrible atrocity of a situation, which would have been worse. So I do think that's one of the contexts. I think a lot of his critiques was correct. I will agree with him pretty much. I think the command needs to be fired. I think we don't fire command. Command messes up in the military and we don't fire. And I think the discipline from the military really is at the top. We have a brass issue. We have a brass issue of they want to be bureaucrats and not generals. And they want careerists. They want to be a career. This is their career. You wouldn't fire somebody who has to make a career together and everything. And when you mess up that bad, I mean, you need to do a different job. You need to be relieved of command. You can have your pension and go off. You know what I mean? That's fine. I'm not saying strip them of their benefit or anything. You served as a general. You served your country. You get your discharge. We'll give you an honorable discharge and everything, but you're done. You're just not up to the task. You've petered out. You're done. It's time to move on. And I know that sounds a little mean, maybe, but that's life. You know what I mean? I can't continue to serve because I have PTSD. So I mean, it comes from a personal place that it is hard. I have to accept that there's certain realities, and if you're messing up as bad as you did in Afghanistan, you're not qualified to be a general, and it's time for you to, or at least soldier up and give your resignation. Go out there and be like, look, we messed up. Here's our resignation.
Well,
that's one of the service to your public when you mess up that bad, I think.
Well, one of the skills that military folks are trained in and are supposed to be better in than anything else is logistics. Mm-hmm. And that withdrawal was an absolute logistics nightmare in every way, shape, or form. So at the very minimum, to speak to what you are saying, this is a military operation. It's a logistical military operation, and it was a shit show. And so somebody has to, if it was a private corporation and you needed, you needed 200 of the hottest toys out to a store and you didn't get it and you lost those sales, you get fired.
Well, a couple things. I think Corona in the global supply chain and all that does take into consideration. I will take that into part of the consideration. But think about it. We've been so using all these civilian contractors, right? So when it comes time to do a full military operation and you've had it outsourced to the private sector, now what are we going to do? Right? We've outsourced it, and now when it comes the real, and you need your full battle rattle on, you need to do things the right way. And we've had a culture of outsourcing operations. And I don't know all the details or the minutiae, but when you're trying to move these parts together, and we have so many civilians, and there was a lot of problems with civilians. That was a lot of the people who didn't come through were the civilians. It wasn't military personnel, it was civilians, because we don't have that control, that command control over it, because we decided to create a culture of, let's do a lean budget. Let's outsource everything. Let's make sure Halliburton makes lots of money for the vice president.
But that's the thing, Chris. It's not about running a lean budget or the private sector doing it more cheaply and efficiently than the military. It's about profit. We bloody well know that. It isn't about not anywhere near about saving money. It's about redirecting money to profitable entities.
And
Halliburton,
stealing it from veterans. I mean, like when you're making
right?
profit,
You are
in
stealing it from
defense,
veterans,
and you're
absolutely.
telling me you're going to make profit for Halliburton, and you don't have the money to fully fund the combat-related, especially compensation program. So we're gonna give them the smaller pension. You know what you did? You took that money from that veteran and you gave it to a bunch of people, to Trump's friends. Okay, that
But
paid in a pay-to-play system.
A
You
lot
know,
of
I mean,
folks know.
Go on.
A lot of folks know that former Vice President Cheney was the CEO of Halliburton when he chose himself in the vice presidential search committee to be George W. Bush's vice president. And they also, but here's a bit of the history, and it's going to be a very quick general history, folks, that they don't know. He continued to take a check from Halliburton the entire time he was vice president. He never divested himself. Halliburton was an oil services company. They provided bodies and equipment and logistical support for oil drilling operations. And they were going to go broke because Dick Cheney wasn't a businessman. He was a former member of the House and former defense secretary. He wasn't a businessman. He was running them into the ground. And when the Iraqi invasion happened, double-digit numbers of no bid contracts went to Halliburton. They are now fabulously profitable. They've moved their headquarters, by the way, to the Middle East, and they are one of the largest defense contractors on the planet.
Did you know, and I remember this from business school, when they started talking about the Iraq war, and all the time there was consistent $5 a barrel premium. They did research on this in business school, just by making us go to war in an oil country, because the oil for food program was allowing Saddam to, I think, export something like 2 million barrels a day. And it was a lot of oil under the food for oil program. So that oil just changed a little bit, right? We know if we change it just a little bit, the price goes way up, right? Because supply and demand, the economics, won't go bore you with the policy details here. But there was economic incentive on two ends. Let's talk about KBR. KBR was a division, or is, I'm not sure if it still is.
It's Kellogg, Brown and Root.
Yep. When I was in Iraq, I experienced a form of statism because everything was KBR. Everywhere you went, everything was KBR. Your laundry, your food, the cars, no bid contract, 200% premium.
No bid contracts. That sounds like the free market and capitalism, doesn't it?
State socialism. What do you think we're doing with China? I mean, America has created under Reaganism, since the Reagan era, they support the biggest communist regime ever, the most powerful communist regime ever, the People's Republic of China, the Communist Party of China.
The systematic and deliberate
outsourcing everything.
The systematic and deliberate outsourcing of our industrial base and our blue collar economy to a different country. And we've now made them, and we've now paid them, we've now made them. And I think a lot of folks don't want to say this, and we still get told we're the richest country on earth and we're the biggest economy on earth. And you know, sometimes yes, and in other measures, by the way, no, we aren't. We made China the preeminent power on earth. We did that. A small select group.
We state builded a communist regime under the Reagans,
right?
From the Reagan,
and that's a small select group of really rich people and big corporations did that.
Yeah, and we got so dependent. Now we have the supply chain problem because we have a country. We didn't even the roles of, like, I always remember saying, well, I said this, like, why are we all putting everything in one country? What would happen if, I was always told, don't worry about those type of things. I had brought up legitimate concerns about this when I remember, this is like, 15 years ago when I was in business school. I'm like, I don't understand what would happen to American. You're thinking in the old World War II kind of mentality. We're not going to outsource it. We're not going to worry about it.
That's exactly what's happening.
This is the neoliberal. And I mean that in the context of the laissez-faire economics of what Bush had put forth, and not really in the social aspect of, trying to push for more liberalism and some good things that comes out of that, but in that right-wing economic push that we went full-fledged towards. And that's really part of the reason we're dealing with this problem. If we had localization instead of globalization, how would we'd have chips for our cars? We wouldn't have this hyperinflation. This hyperinflation is coming in by a failed Reagan economics. This inflation is Reaganomics caused by. There's no.
I would only argue with you though that it is, whether it is failed or not. It depends on who it has failed. It has failed the 99%. It's been fabulously successful if you're in the top 1%, or you own, operate, hold stock, and are a CEO on the board of directors of one of the largest corporations. It's not failed for them. And by the way, I have a different view of this inflation. I think this inflation, by the way, is nothing other than the 1% and the corporations clawing back what they believe to be their money. Oh, the government gave you all money to survive a pandemic. No, that's our money. That's our money. I don't think China
the money, the funds. Well, I think both can be correct. I think
China's been open. China's been open in manufacturing since probably at least a year. I mean, they held their COVID outbreak to a great extent into that one city, and continued to operate at a lower capacity, yes, but not at a zero capacity. While I happen to believe that there are legitimate supply chain issues, I don't dispute that for a second. I also think it's not as bad as we've been told. I also think it's not as bad as to be causing these shortages and shortages, I guess. I would keep looking for another word and I shouldn't be. I also happen to genuinely believe in my heart, this is just my opinion, no one need agree with me, that this is corporate America saying that the American economy has been flooded with nearly $8 trillion in cash in the last 2 years to keep us all alive. And that's not hyperbole. It's to keep us all alive so you can keep buying food, keep a roof over your head, get the kids to school, even if only virtually, but get the technology you need to keep the kids in school. No. Corporate America saying that's our money. We'll have that. Thank you so much. We'll take that back from you.
But I also wonder if it's this is the other thing too. I wonder, is it market manipulation?
But that's exactly what that is. And in fact, that's a way better way of saying it than what I just said. But it is market manipulation. If I have two, milk's a bad example. I'm going to use milk anyway. If I have 2 years of stored up milk, I don't have a supply problem. But if I only release it in tiny, De Beers controls 78% of the world's diamond market. Should diamonds be as expensive as they are? No, one company controls it. So if they only release tiny bits, the price goes up.
But do you think there's collusion at a time when Build Back Better was going to come through? We were about to pass this massive 3.5. This was actually going to really help a lot of the problems.
It absolutely is.
And I do honestly think if inflation was lower, maybe Manchin, I don't know, but maybe the Democrats would be on a different page with this. I don't know. I can't say that, but is this kind of being staged in a way to say, oh, look, we can't do government intervention because of hyperinflation. And so it's trying to take this opportunity back because we're finally we finally seen government works.
The Trump regime passed the first relief package for Americans was in the Trump regime. It was $2 trillion. Yes. Did we see this hyperinflation then? No, we didn't. All Democratic control of federal government. And suddenly we have this, what I think is largely a myth of hyperinflation. Our economy, we tend to forget.
It's inflation. I would correct if we're using that term. Hyperinflation has to go, I believe, above 10%. And we're just
to be technically correct, yeah. I also think
we are not in hyperinflation. we've been living in a deflated Bushonomics
Mhm.
era of deflation. When we have inflation, it feels we're not used to it. So the inflation isn't, and I think in a way you're right. I think they're making a lot more out of it.
Why do you think that we have this inflation at a time where wages have grown? Because I'm convinced of it. This is, if it's not the complete reason for it, it is at least a component of it. Yes, we've seen 6% inflation, but we've also seen wages rise to match it. It's corporations saying that you can't have that money. That's our money. For 50 years, it's been our money. That's not yours. You can't have it. We'll take it back. And what's one way to take it back? We'll raise the prices on everything.
Well, and I think there's a lot of, I think the inflation is complex, and I think we can go into, I think there are some legitimate things that are causing the inflation. I do think, I don't want to go down too much of all our conspiracy theories, but I'm more concerned, it's more of questioning. It's like, what's really going on here? And part of it is like, how do you go into a post-pandemic environment with all these things going on and not have some type of inflation? And, is this something that's gonna last for 20 years, or will in 10 months it be like completely change? So, I mean, there are some logistics changes that are going to be natural. I just wondering how much of it is manufactured and how much of it is in general also lean management and all the philosophies that kind of came around of being prepared that nothing bad was going to happen. If the free market is the end all be all, and this market economy is going to do anything, we weren't prepared for anything. We got away from that New Deal kind of era philosophy of you need to be prepared for a war, you need to be prepared for something. We're not prepared in general. So now that we didn't have a back supply of inventory, so we couldn't handle it for a short period of time, or just in the principles of the culture of greed is good and maximizing the next quarter's profit and don't worry about tomorrow. I think those kind of principles, and outsource everything to China, one country,
and the just-in-time inventory, the just-in-time manufacturing inventory, which is actually why we saw the shutdown guidelines that we saw at the beginning of this pandemic, because even our hospitals are run on just-in-time. We don't have a lot of empty beds for a crisis like this because empty beds aren't profitable. So it's just-in-time, and it's just-in-time, and just-in-time.
I would really say that we need to really culturally look at that. And I heard a Republican out of it's Dartmouth was complaining about he needs to have better leadership, Pete Buttigieg. I'm like, you don't want government intervention in anything. So with the supply chain problem, you either have government intervention, and if you want that, you're going to have to give up laissez-faire capitalism. The concept of hands-off capitalism is basically showing it doesn't work. I mean,
and by the way, China is a capitalistic economy. It is heavily regulated capitalism.
Yeah.
There are billionaires in China.
It doesn't help its people out nearly enough.
There are billionaires in China.
China has atrocity on not just human rights, absolutely. There's human rights atrocity, but also an atrocity on not creating enough social safety nets when they have the money now to do it. And there are too many people suffering in China. And for a communist country, if that's what your value system is and you're supposed to do it, they've done a miserable job. I mean, true, it's better than it was 40 years ago, and a lot of people are much more happier. The economy is a lot better than it was for people. But the wealth they have now, I think there needs to, they're not doing enough for people. They're just not. They're not doing enough to help their people and letting their rich billionaires get away. It's like America. It's like same thing here.
Let me pivot to some different things, because you are wearing your veterans hat at the moment, but you have many other hats, among which is your deep activity inside the Democratic Party here in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, both in Chester County and the Commonwealth as a whole. A terribly general question, probably too generic of a question. What did you make of the last election night, election cycle, election results here in 2021?
Let's go through this. Virginia is a very heavy military state. And New Jersey is a much more heavy union state. Democrats funded union pensions, and we won. Democrats did not fund veterans pensions fully, and we lost. You know, let's look at what we did when we spend the money and we invest and we keep our promises to our veterans and we keep our promises to our people, Democrats win. So I think the story that needs to be taken away, we need to start looking at who, okay, our part of our coalition is going to be in Georgia, in Arizona, in North Carolina, in Virginia, heavy veteran states. And we need to make sure that we're doing and filling in these gaps in the veterans. There's a lot of good programs out there for veterans, but you've seen what it was with the VA. And we need to fill in these gaps, and we need to be legislating, because when we did legislate to the needs of communities, we win. So I think the writing's on the wall. Democrats, the writing's on the wall. And I think we need to include everybody. I think we failed really in one area of veterans in the Build Back Better program, really putting together a comprehensive veteran package. I think you can see we really need to do that. And because that's part of our coalition today too. One is a Democrat, speaking politically speaking. In Pennsylvania, I was on election night, I was disappointed. But then the vote by mail started coming, and Chester County went blue, Delaware County went blue. Laura Dumas is going to win. We're doing a recount for her. We actually made inroads on there. And I did see a lot of, in Pennsylvania, where you have 2 seats open. And one went Republican and one went Democrat. So I do think there is a moment to kind of us to all reflect on what that really means. And I don't know what that means right now, but people are splitting their vote. And I think there is something to be, for us to kind of just analyze that and say, you know, what's really going on? People are still not all that into the Republicans after January 6th and everything. It's not like they're just, historically speaking, Democrats did fabulous. If you talk about cycle, if you're looking at it from a strictly cycle perspective, compared to 2009, Democrats did better. So I think because we did pass that $1.9 trillion package, and we did take care of the unions, and we did do all these great things. We just need to finish the job. If we want to win in 2022, we need the $3.5 trillion package, not the 1.75. Manchin, you want to be in the majority again? You want to stay in the majority? You want to go and stay in the majority and get things done and be part of the party that rules? Come on board. Get it together. And maybe we need to kind of prioritize different fundings for different things. We need to kind of look at where the money's coming in. I think there's some different ways, and I think veterans is a really big one that we can kind of, fund different things, look at what we're where all the money is going. I think we focused a lot on family programs. I think we can focus maybe on some other programs and other things that we need to do. We need to take care of this climate change. I think that really is something we need to we can't avoid it. We can't avoid climate.
Well, that's planetary extinction, and it's also and I think you can look at it both ways. It's planetary extinction, but it is also a massive economic opportunity.
Well, it's an economic opportunity, and it's also an economic liability. We forget about the cost of the liability.
Right.
If we don't take care of it now, we're going to pay a lot more money. So we need a robust one, and we need to reposition ourselves. We need to go, really and get those things together. So I think that, Democrats need to really, think about it, and I think to somebody like Joe Manchin, who has $5 million in a coal company, sometimes you need to think about other people. When I put on my uniform, you swore to uphold the Constitution, so did I. I made a lot of sacrifice for that. I mean, and people have made more sacrifice, but I want the senator to think, what sacrifice should you make for upholding that? If that means your profits have to go down at your company, okay, great. Make sure your people in your home state are taken care of. We need to make it, the Pittsburgh mayor wants to make the Ohio River Valley a green energy hub. And I think we should do that. I agree. Let's bring the money into Pittsburgh and West Virginia and Ohio, that area. Those are people who are going to be left behind with it. Let's bring in the money. Let's make them an energy hub. Let's bring them into the 21st century economy. Make sure those people, for a lot of time, that Appalachian region have been left behind. Great. Why don't you put forth a proposal? Not just, we can't be the party of no. We need to be the party of. We need reconstruction. We can't just deconstruct all these institutions and everything and just looking at that. We need to reconstruct it. We need to build back. And we need to build back better. And I think that's really where, we need the full program. I really believe, we need the full money. And that's how the Democrats, I think that's how we keep control. Because people are telling us, with what happened with a split race, split tickets, there's communication coming out there, what people want. And these programs are popular. Look at the polling. Look at the polling on all these programs. And so if people are telling you want something, in the communities we did something we wanted, follow the logic. Let's put together a real American project, and I think we need to figure out how to. I'm proud that Joe Biden got bipartisanship, though. I think that's something to also is part of the reason why I think it was better than it was 2009. I think there is that the fact that they got split and the Joe Biden trying to come together, and then you hear Joe Biden has to defend Republicans. The Democratic president has to protect Republicans in Congress. Whoa.
Well, let's think about
Party January 6th. Let's step back.
Yeah.
As an insurrection. Then your people try to say, let's get back together and work it out and be bipartisan, and you get punished.
Let's think about New Jersey too, my original home state. Jack Ciattarelli, the Republican nominee for governor, and almost pulled that out. And by the way, I think when the post-mortem is done on the New Jersey vote, and I have not seen it, this is just my impression, what you're going to find is that Mr. Ciattarelli overperformed in the red areas, Democrats underperformed in the blue areas, and I think you're going to end up finding out that it was progressives that saved Phil Murphy. It wasn't the corporate Democrats, it was the progressives that saved Phil Murphy, the man who even before Build Back Better was ready to institute universal pre-K in New Jersey, paid family leave, and build a wind farm off the coast to power the entire state, as well as restoring taxes to the pre-Chris Christie levels for the top 1% and the biggest corporations in the state, after calling the legislature into session to make them do it. A Democratic controlled legislature, by the way. I think you're going to find that progressives saved Phil Murphy in New Jersey, as they should have, by the way.
I guess I would frame it differently. I think progressive policies and progressive values saved him, because the American people...
because he stood up for them. But at the time, when it came to people actually filling in the ballots and voting, I think you're going to find that it was progressives that saved Phil Murphy.
Well, probably both. Yeah, I mean, I think when Democrats use progressive frames and we give up this neoliberal Republican style talking points, that's how you win. You can't say, well, I'm going to be diet Republican and expect that's what the strategy to win is. When has that worked? I mean, honestly, you go back in a political family a long time, a lot longer than I've been in politics. Has that ever worked when we ran as diet Republican?
Well, no, I've said on this program probably too many times before, probably into the thousands now. I believe that most voters will always vote for the real thing.
Yeah.
They will vote for the real, genuine Republican, even if they don't like that person or the policies, because at least they're real about it, instead of Republican light or, Captain Compromise and all that kind of happy stuff.
And I think the corporate media spins Bill Clinton off to be more moderate than he was. He did the biggest tax hike in U.S. history when he was president, and he pushed universal health care. He wanted full service of the gays in the military, LGBT community at that time. He didn't get what he wanted. He had to work with Congress. He couldn't get what he wanted. But if you really look at the context of the early 90s, I mean, you're talking somebody wants universal health care and raise taxes from like 31%, like almost 9%, you know, like this massive tax. I mean, we couldn't get the Democrats today to vote for Clinton's tax rates, could we? I mean, so Clinton's progressive in a lot of ways. When we think about what Bill Clinton really was and what his platform was, it wasn't.
And the cornerstone of his economic plan was exactly that. He cut taxes on 98% of all Americans and raised them on the top 2%.
Economics. I mean, and it
Pretty
worked.
simple stuff.
Yeah, I mean, like raise taxes on the rich, and the 90s were good. You know, and so I think in a lot of ways there's no way that we run on that policy, and Democrats really need to get back to figuring out what the I think true we need to focus on a message of hope and change, and not just trying to blow up the system and change it, because you also got to give people hope. I think there is something I believe in.
That's an interesting transition, because I did want to ask you this question. You are not just a member of the Democratic Party, but a committee person, state committee, if I'm not mistaken. One of my other hats is with Our Revolution Pennsylvania, as you are well aware. We have made it now our mission, our sole reason for being, until the Pennsylvania primary day, to get people elected inside the party at all levels, to take part, to be a part of it, not just say we don't like what the party's doing, or the party's not doing this, or the party's not doing that, but get in it. And specifically from the point of view, which yet again has become yet another one of my catchphrases, is it not just the type of progressive groups from the outside that are just lobbing rocks at everything, and that want to burn it all down, because when you burn the house down, you're really only left with two things: a pile of ash and nowhere to live.
Right.
So we want to get in the party for exactly the reason, not because we hate it, but because we love it, and because we can, because we believe it can operate better. It can, it not only can be more progressive, but should be. And progressive, by the way, is not new. It's not foreign. It's not alien. It's our own history. It's the history.
Who do Democrats approve of more? Bernie Sanders, the Independent, or Joe Manchin?
Right. Well, exactly.
The most popular Democratic senator from Democrats is not a registered Democrat. Just, you know, polling. I mean, this is
because it's the history of the party. I think, Chris, it's our own history.
Yeah,
we had a democratic socialist president in this country. We didn't use that label back then, but we had one, and he was so damn popular he got elected 4 times.
It's not that hard to be.
No. But what I wanted to ask you, though,
okay, well, on, yeah.
How important is it, if you are a registered Democrat, heck, even if you're an independent but you lean toward progressive values, how important is it to get inside your party and be part of the solution rather than just hurling rocks from the outside? Crucial.
Couple things. You know, I'm staying in there. I'm running for re-election for state committee.
I am strongly considering running for state committee from Northampton County, by the way.
You should go. You should do it. Absolutely.
I'm that close.
Asking you, you're gonna be getting bugged every. Oh my gosh, you shouldn't have said that, because I'm gonna bug you to run. I'm
that close.
Okay, well, I'm going to push you over the edge. So you could just say you're running for state committee now and make this announcement now in front of the radio land, because we're going to push you to run. We need people. We need your voices up there. You need to be out there. You need to be communicating what you live. I believe that you need to be. I consider myself to be like a cultural Christian. I believe myself in my core value, from a cultural perspective, more or less. Very ecumenical and take all religions into viewpoint, but I believe myself being a light in the world. I believe that radiating out in your community of your virtues, of your empathy, right, and sympathy, because sometimes we can't always empathize with somebody, but we can at least be sympathetic with them, right? And that's what it means to be, I think, a Democrat. And that's what it means to be a progressive. Progressive value is what? Is the ability to understand, to have solidarity, empathy, and sympathy. with others. That's how I really look at what it means to be progressive. I think, you know, I try to, even when you're dealing with that hatred and stuff, at least try to work with them and have, I just want to love people. That's what it means to really, I feel like, as a core value of who I am. I just want to love the American people as much as I can and just represent them. And that's like, if you have that drive, you should be in the party that wants to deliver that and make that the party. Don't make it don't be in there to, you know, because there's going to be other people that will come in and do it to take advantage and make money. I'm not doing this to make money. I don't make money on state committee. You know, my paycheck is $0.00. You know, I spend more money than I make on state committee, right? And you know that, and that's what this is about.
Yeah, it costs a few shekels every time we meet somewhere, doesn't it?
Yeah, exactly. It does.
You gotta get a room. Somebody's buying drinks. I mean, you know.
Yeah, it does. But you know what? It really is. And whatever commitment you can do, and I understand some people don't have the financial situation to do it as much. Maybe it's just knocking on your neighbor's doors. Maybe it is however you want to get involved. You should get involved. I say, get involved with your party, but be an organizer. You don't have to be involved with the party. You can get people elected, right? You don't have to be there. You can run for office yourself, or you can say, like, you know what? I don't want to run for office. I just gonna knock some doors and get that person that I love elected. And you know,
I think this ties into what we were talking about earlier, way earlier in the program about the VA. It's about accountability. There's a lot of folks inside our party who care deeply about the Democratic Party, its values. They share its values. They advocate for its values, but tend to say, you know, the state party doesn't help us. They don't pay attention to us. We didn't get any money from them. We didn't get any guidance or training or support or what. Well, then get in it and change it. Endorsements in Pennsylvania are a big deal. They're a big damn deal to me. We shouldn't be doing them. When we have two quality human beings running for a statewide office, we have no business as a party endorsing one of them. None. That's why we have primaries. If you want to see that change, then get in. If you don't want to see all of the candidates come from one place, then get in.
Yeah.
And if you don't want to see the same campaign, I don't want to say management, because this particular person and organization I'm thinking of doesn't really do management. They collect checks and lose races.
Oh,
if you want to see that,
how many organizations is that? Like you're saying,
well, there's a lot of them.
Only one. That's where I'm going to disagree.
Well, no, there's. You're right.
Organizations.
There's a lot of them, but there's a big one right here in Lehigh Valley where we just collect checks and lose races.
Yeah.
And if you want to see that stop, if you want to see candidates pushed toward losing organizations because it's a friend of a friend and a buddy and a committee member, and you know, it'll be they need the business. I don't care about the business. We're supposed to be winning races, and that's how we represent people. That's how we bring the change that we say we believe in, is by being in office, pushing the policies that we care for. One of the I hosted an event yesterday for Our Revolution to get people to run for their Democratic Party, municipal, county, and state, and that you can't affect change. The state party has a platform plank supporting single payer. How many of our candidates do we hold to that? Right. Precious few, if any. Few, if any.
What Harrisburg is putting through, which we have the ability to do, a public option.
Yep.
I ran a race with the working families, and that was one of the platform planks. They're like, well, nobody in Harrisburg is putting it forth. I'm like, this is a compromise platform issue. This unites the party, because you know, people who are not as progressive, like everybody in the party was like for public. I've been to rallies and stuff, like, yeah, everybody's getting involved in it. It's a compromise. We're not even getting to the compromise level, okay? Like Democrats aren't even coming to the compromise level. Let's get to the compromise of a public option that we can do, a Commonwealth public option under the law, and it doesn't even like create the state money. It's just like creating that, which would bring down costs for people, so you'd save Pennsylvanians money.
Or not even just here. You know full well as the pandemic pressed on, we entered that interstate compact with New York, New Jersey, Delaware, Maryland, Connecticut. I think I got everybody. where we were purchasing PPE as a group, as a collective of states.
Right.
You know,
yeah,
even if the Commonwealth couldn't do single payer by itself, it certainly
Oh, it
could
can.
with
Oh, it can.
New Jersey and Delaware and Maryland and
Other states are doing it. It's in the Affordable Care Act. You can create a public option. It's
the
in
West
there.
Coast states are trying to do it. Washington,
Vermont
Oregon, and
already has
California.
it. Other states already. Connecticut has it. I know for a fact. The only state I know for a fact, Connecticut has a public option. You know,
If I could buy into Medicare, I would do it. It'd take me about 10 seconds to make that decision. It would take me longer to log on to the site than to decide to actually do it. I have to say too, it's 8 o'clock. We're going to wrap up. I'm going to let you get to your business. I would like you. I'm going to text you. I'm going to message you behind the scenes.
I know what you're going to ask. You want me to get my contact information out there. So I know we
No, I'm going to ask you that too, but I also want you to come and join us at RREV because, like I said, this is what we're doing now, and you believe in this. I also want to say thank you for letting your partner, your buddy, come into the room a couple times.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. I love when that happens. I really do. I love it because it's a Zoom. We're all doing this stuff from home, right?
Yeah.
If we have cats and dogs and kids and all that, I'm like, who cares? I love seeing them. I loved seeing your buddy come in the room. That was great. I love it. You should have picked him up and put him on camera. I love it.
I'll do that next time. He was just trying to be a diva. Yeah.
Ah!
So, yeah. So, I'd love to join. I'd love to go to the Art Revolution and talk with them about
I'm going to send you that. I'll send you that in the background. But please tell people for yourself. I just realized my darn iPad is going to die because I forgot to plug it in. I've been streaming this thing the whole time and I got no power. Tell people how to follow you, find you, and how they can connect with you. And first off, I really hope you and Ty start to talk. I hope you guys talk a lot. You're doing so much of the same work, and the expanded ability I think the collaboration would bring for you guys to help people would just be incredible. But how do people find you, follow you, talk to you about veteran services, about your experiences, vent all of it? How do they get to you?
I'm gonna give you my phone number. I'm gonna get everybody out there in Radio Land my phone number. So if you want it, I put it in the chat room. He can post it in the YouTube video when this gets uploaded. So it will be my contact information. It's 484-206-5600. Again, my cell phone number is 484-206-5600. Call me. You want to talk to me, text me, call me. Christopher Kovardovich on Facebook. I'll probably be creating a Facebook for State Committee page soon. So just however you want to contact me.
Yeah, I got to do that too, I guess.
We got to do that. Okay. So now I got my list.
I guess I got to do a damn Facebook page, huh?
My other cousin Jeff. So I have my other cousin Jeff running for State Committee.
Well, I mean, there's 3 male gendered seats open here in Northampton, and I think it's time for this old guy to maybe sit in one of them.
Absolutely. Oh, it is time. So
well, you got to live it. If you're going to preach it, you got to live it. I talk to people about getting involved, get in there, show up. Yeah, and if I keep telling people to get in there and show up, then I guess I got to do it.
You got to. You got to do it. I'll take that as a commitment.
My friends told me, my partners in Blue Collective said, if you're going to do this, we'll help you, of course, but you're going to have to knock doors. I'm like, oh, really? Do I have to?
Oh, I know. We're going to work. Hey,
getting so many arguments.
I'm in Chester County. We have over 500,000 people, so I'm going to be knocking some doors.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Well, we don't, we don't have you beat there. That's for sure. But I guess I pretty much need to do these. It's frightening though, even for folks like us though, who are surrounded by this, and we do this day in and day out, when it finally comes time to, really put your foot in the pool, you do have to think about it. I mean, you got to think about, I got to make calls. I got to knock doors. Where am I getting the money from? And things like this. It's a thing. It's a real thing.
It is. It's hard. And you know what? And that's why I said, if people are like, well, I don't want to run, you can support somebody like Jeff that's running, right? You can help knock doors for him when he runs. We have to do it as a team, and you don't have to be the person always on the ballot. You don't have to.
Right.
Because there's so much resources that go into getting somebody like you elected to state committee. You might want to focus your whole group on one person, and that's great. And you can get that one seat. and then get a seat at the table, because representation matters. It matters to have people represented. And sometimes I've worked on a combined over 30 campaigns. But my point is, I want to see good representation. That's why I work to elect good people. So.
There's been sadly, there's been a shortage of that. I talk about that a lot, and I think people miss the meaning, because I think it's such an underused word now, that I think folks miss the meaning of what I'm trying to get at when I talk about getting decent people elected.
Yeah.
And I'm not just saying like, kind of like the, there really is no bad pizza. Like, yeah, that was decent. No, I mean like decency, like real decency.
I don't know if, like, I think when there were liberal Republicans in the Northeast up here, I don't think we cared as much about it than it is today. It really matters. I think there's so much more money in politics. There's so much more. I think a lot of us were like, yeah, there's problems in society and everything, but our politicians weren't as just corrupt as they are today. I think I don't know. I just don't see it. I just think, yeah, there was most definitely political machines and other problems and issues like that, but it's different today.
Right.
I just think it's so much worse. There's a part of it is there's lack of people who served in the military, a lack of people who've had like an experience like that they used to have, that integrated you into society. And we just got to get good people elected, and we need. Steny Hoyer once told me this, a House whip. He said, you got to get me 217 other people who will vote like me. If you want all the policies that I'm promoting, what you need to do is get me 217 other people. And then you got to get them in the Senate. Then we got to pass it through the Senate. That's what you're going to need to do. And he told me that as an organizer, and I realized how important it was to get people elected.
And that's what a party structure is supposed to do. It's part of what
it's to get power. Political parties, simply definition, is to get gavels. To get that gavel so you can throw it down and get things passed.
And get the good policies that you believe in passed. And work against the other ones. And dare I say, yes, of course, little negotiation along the way. Usually the best policies are the ones that not anyone is happy about. I got some of this, I got some of that, I got some of that. I would have taken more of this.
I would like to make is that in Chester County, the grassroots were phenomenal. We hit doors at record levels. We kept the county blue. And I think what I seen in Dumas, what happened in that election, and what this cycle is, that if we put the work in, if we put the energy in, we can organize Pennsylvania to make it as blue as our flag. We can make Pennsylvania a deep blue state, I believe. You see where the populations are growing, what's happening in those counties, what's going on. It's going to take urban, rural, and suburban. All three of them coming together, all of us coming up there, all of us coming unified. And I think we can make Pennsylvania deep blue if we focus on our core progressive values.
And
we build a party back.
What state has suffered at the hands of Reaganism more than Pennsylvania? What state should be more blue than this one?
Yeah, the whole Rust Belt.
And I actually
freshwater states, the freshwater states, all of them. We got to be talking our values.
And it is for all of the national media, especially, and even some Commonwealth media of, boy, just Democrats took it on the chin everywhere throughout the country. I actually do. First off, that isn't entirely true. Was it a set? I think, if you look at it as an entirety, was it a setback? Yes. Was it a massive, humbling defeat everywhere in the country? No, that's simply not the case. Was it a massive humbling defeat here in the Commonwealth? No, that is not the case. Was it as good as we'd hoped? Was it as good as we thought it was going to be going into it? And as even some of the polling showed, no. Was it a massive, huge, humiliating defeat? No. We did keep New Jersey. Virginia seems to have been its own animal, and I think does teach us some things. But if you want to do better, get in and do better. But I do think one of the hopeful signs was what you said, is that even in this social media era, this big media era, this TV, radio, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube era, you know, Google ads and all that good stuff, good old fashioned knock on a door, greet somebody with a smile, introduce yourself is what won the day in so many different places. The old fashioned legwork, the old communication, conversations, not confrontations. It's the old fashioned stuff that got it done. That's a
Yeah,
hopeful sign.
And I think too, when the other thing in Chester County is we didn't use a lot of highfalutin consultant firms. We let the grassroots people do a lot of our social media, a lot of our stuff, the political operatives on the ground there. So we took over all operations. And that was key. I mean, you know, I was a campaign manager out here and I said, we're going to do this and we're going to do that. And this is the amount of money we're going to spend. And we're going to do it. We used science. We didn't use my cousin. You know what I mean? We didn't go to the cousins. We said, this is how we're going to run a really great communication campaign. And I also want to shout out to Chester County Democrats Communication. They were phenomenal. They did this text messaging campaign. They traced down every ballot that didn't get turned in. Republicans were like, there's no way the numbers were like, there were supposed to be 24,000 turned. They're like, no, you're wrong. It came out closer to 30. We were just like, whoa, Democrats delivered in Chester County because they allowed us also, on the other hand, is to get the people who are doing it out of the goodness of their heart, not just trying to make a buck, not the big highfalutin
Well, that's
holding firms, right?
these,
it takes it all. I mean, you have to, because you
some of
gotta
these
make sure
damn
people-
highfalutin firms, and one of them's right here in the valley, who ran a bunch of
Oh.
races last cycle. We know who we're talking about. They collected plenty of money and did
Oh, and lost.
squat all for it.
Yeah.
Just my opinion. We're almost 8:15. My friend, I'm so glad that you could be here.
Yeah.
And I know it was
So much.
it was quite a bit on late notice. I hope you have
I can be your late notice guy. That's what I'm here for.
well,
right?
something struck me the other day. I'm like, why am I talking to Ty about all these things and not Chris when he's doing so much of the same work? Like, these two guys need to chat. Like, I'm gonna play I'm gonna play help your community matchmaker here, and I'm gonna have these two guys chat. And it seems like I hope I hope you guys stay in touch and can work
Oh,
together.
absolutely. He gave me his contact information and everything.
Yeah.
You all have my contact information, so stay in touch.
I sent you the passcode in behind Messenger.
Okay, perfect.
You'll see the passcode. I hope you can join us tonight or Wednesday or both, or when
Probably Wednesday. You have to probably hop on that meeting now.
But anyway, we're gonna wrap it up. But I want to thank you so much, especially it was pretty much last minute. I think what I messaged you either Friday or yesterday, I can't remember now. It was very last minute, but I'm just very, very grateful that you did it again.
Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak about veterans issues. I really appreciate that too.
And they don't go away. I mean, that's the thing about a program like this. We talk about these issues each week. They don't fade away. I mean, the 2021 election is over, but the issues and the ramifications from it don't end just because we stop talking about it. These veteran issues, folks, for all of you out there, they don't go away. I encourage you very much to find Ty on social media, to find Chris on social media. If you need something, that's what they're there for. These issues don't go away when we sign off. They continue. These are daily struggles and daily battles and daily successes for folks. They don't go away when we sign off. These things continue. And, we try to shed a light on them every chance that we get. And so that's what we've done again tonight. But thanks, my friend, for being here again. I really honestly appreciate it. I really do.
Thank you. I'll talk to you soon.
Yep, we'll see you.
All right, take care, everybody out there in Radio Land.
That is going to do it for us for this week. We will return next week with a live program. That would be the 21st. Currently, I do not have a guest lined up. I think I do, but I don't want to quite say it yet because it isn't completely solid. I have a couple options, which is nice, but it's not written. It's in pencil. It's not in ink. So I don't want to tell you exactly whom as of yet. Keep an eye on the Facebook page for show announcements as we send out show announcements to every place that we share the program. If you find the video, you're going to find a show announcement a few days ahead. I try to send out show announcements on Fridays, and then we are here on Sundays. If you missed the special episode of the program that we did this past Wednesday, that was the 10th, November 10th. You can find it on our Facebook page, That Other Side of Information. I tweeted it at That Kennedy Talk. It is on LinkedIn, Jeff Kennedy, and you can find it on our YouTube channel, That Other Side of Information, which is where you'll find this program eventually. George, my dear friend and our technical producer, changes the video format of this from Facebook to YouTube. It takes a while. It's usually up there by, Monday or Tuesday. No need to worry. It'll usually, but tomorrow, Tuesday, Wednesday, it gets there and you can get to YouTube and find it. If you subscribe to our YouTube channel, you will be alerted every time that we update or upload something. You can, I beg you as always to give us a like, a follow, a subscribe, whatever the proper term is for these different formats. A like and on Facebook. Become part of our group, That Other Side of Information. We're just shy of 950. We want to get to 1,000 by the end of the calendar year. Give us a like and a follow on Instagram. Give us a subscribe at YouTube. Give us, find me on LinkedIn. We can't do the program without you. If you're a fan of the program, if you're a regular viewer and listener, share it. Tell your friends and family about it. Have them give us a chance. Give us a listen. If it works for them, then I hope they continue to come back. If they don't, at least let them give us a chance. We're not making any money here, folks. You didn't hear me read a single ad all night. So we do this out of my pocket, and we do it by the grace and good graces of our guests and them sharing their time. They're being very, very kind with their time. So if you enjoy the program, tell us, drop us a note, give us a like, give us a follow, give us a subscribe. I'm starting to slur. I'm getting tired, I guess. Please do that. Keep us going. We will return again next week, the 21st. We will be off for Thanksgiving. We will have 3 shows in December, and then that will be it for 2021, if you can believe that already. 4 shows remain for 2021, 4 live shows. Whether we will be doing any special or additional programs on Wednesday evenings is yet up in the air. We got very good attendance and very good viewership and listenership for our Wednesday program. I'm considering adding Wednesday as a second program, probably around 9 p.m., which I think is when the live DJs end on 101. Maybe just an hour to chat with you, take a call or two if you wanted to call us on a Wednesday. We're thinking about that. The new year might be a good time to start that, but we'll see how that goes. So let me just say, did I forget anything else? The program will be up on YouTube. You know where to follow us all over social media. By the way, if you have a product or a service, or if you are your own business, you have a service, a product, your business, your whatever that you want to promote, I beg you to do it here. I ask you to please consider doing it here. I know that there are some businesses that are reticent to put their advertisement on a political program, but guess what? Political folks buy things too. They need lawyers and plumbers and carpenters. They buy cars, they buy groceries, they buy clothes. So yes, there are folks that don't particularly appreciate or agree with my political point of view. But I think I'm a pretty decent guy. I think I can read your ad. In fact, I'll help you write your ad. And I believe, and it will will reach a global audience. And the beauty of it is that it will live on in perpetuity. Whoever watches the YouTube will hear your ad. If they watch a 6-month-old program and your ad's in it, they will hear it. It doesn't go away. We'll do a live read for you right here on the program many times throughout the program if you choose to do it that way. But let's talk about it. Drop us an email, drop me a note on Facebook, find me on Messenger, whatever it might be. This is a good place. This is a great place for you to advertise, and we want you to do so. Don't forget to call Congress. As Congress continues to debate the Build Back Better program and legislation, if you support it, call your Congress people, call your House member, call your senators. If you do not know who your House member is, or if you don't know who your senators are, and sadly there are too many of us who don't, you can call the Central Congressional Switchboard number, 202-224-3121. You'll get a very kind, nice operator. You give them your zip code and they will put you through to your member of the House of Representatives and your senators. And you can speak to them. And you should. Phone calls are very powerful. The office will answer. You tell that usually it's a staffer. Very often it's an unpaid staffer. And you tell them in a very quick and concise way why you're calling. Be polite, be kind, don't scream, don't name call. I would like to tell the senator, I would like to tell the representative, I support this and I think they should too, and here's why. And then in and out, 30 seconds, 45 seconds, thank them and hang up. It's very powerful. And every one of these offices keeps track of these calls, I'm telling you. They keep track of these calls. 202-224-3121. Call Congress. Tell them what you're thinking. So until next week, have conversations with each other. Check in on your neighbors. Build your community. We are a society. We are not just a group of rugged individuals. We are a community. We are a society. Let's be the best of it. For Associate Technical Producer Lynn Dare, for Technical Producer George Dare, for DJ Lex, DJ Earl, and all of my dear family at hot101.net, for Marquise, Whitney, Taekwon, I hope I'm not forgetting anybody, Andrew, everyone at TCP, for April Riddick, who I'm hoping to have back here in the studio very soon, and of course for my much better half and could not ask for better support, Kristen. I am Jeff Kennedy. We will see you next week live on the 21st. I'm doing math in my head. That's a frightening thing. On the 21st of November for the last live before Thanksgiving live show of the Kennedy Effect. Please take care of yourselves and each other. We'll see you next week.